Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Adam Vingan needs to start hitting the out time. It's 2:02. It's 2:02 and a half. What are we doing around here? Do we blame Vingan for that, Ian?
Probably.
Vingan, step it up. While they're coming up with all these reasons why UC Saros is so great. So I want to start on this today. Aaron Rodgers and the Titans. If you are new to the Stillman and Company program, then Aaron Rodgers to the Titans is something you probably haven't heard a lot of. But if you're a veteran and OG Stillman and Company fan, you know we've been talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Titans for like 4 straight years. So Aaron Rodgers to the Titans. Is it a possibility? Should it be a possibility? Is it worth discussing? I don't think the answer is yes. Is Aaron Rodgers my first choice to be the Titans quarterback in 2025? No. And I would argue that the Titans, this horrible team, with this horrible offensive line, with these horrible receivers, with no tight end, I would argue that the Titans probably aren't Aaron Rodgers' first choice to end his storied career. But sometimes in life, you have to play the cards that are in the hand that you're dealt. That's just how it is. So let's say that the Titans don't like these quarterbacks, that they love Abdul Carter, or they love Travis Hunter, and they don't like Cam Ward, and they don't like Shedeur Sanders. And let's say Sam Darnold becomes a Raider, the way Adam Schefter yesterday was speculating he thought he'd become. How many options out there are better than Aaron Rodgers? And when you add Aaron Rodgers, you'd be adding Travis Hunter. You'd be adding somebody with a 35th pick. You'd be adding somebody in the 4th round, the 5th round. You'd be coaching up and developing J.C. Latham, the young guys on your team. So Aaron at quarterback could, in theory, bridge the gap as you start to build up your roster for when you do acquire your quarterback down the road. Again, you built up your roster with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, and when your roster was ready, Ryan Tannehill went right in there and you got to the AFC title game. So I'm not saying that I'm all for Aaron Rodgers to the Titans. Certainly not the way I was 3 years ago. And goodness gracious, it makes me feel old to think that that was 3 years ago. Certainly not the way I was 3 years ago, just banging that drum for Aaron Rodgers. But what are the other options? Again, if you don't like the quarterback, you don't take a quarterback just because you have to take a quarterback because you don't like the free agent options, or you don't do that, especially number 1 overall. And again, Adam Schefter said yesterday he thinks the Raiders are going after Sam Darnold. 68% or whatever it was, that poll we ran at the Super Bowl, they don't even want Sam Darnold. So who's better? Is Daniel Jones a better fit? Is Mac Jones a better fit? Is Justin Fields a better fit? Again, I say all 3 of those with question marks. I'm not convinced on Aaron Rodgers and the Titans one way or another. But I will say this with total certainty. Aaron should absolutely be on the list of options. Again, if we're going to have this discussion and we're going to do it, again, you know who my favorite choice is. I want Sam Darnold to be the quarterback of the Titans, and I would pay Sam Darnold real money. I would overpay Sam Darnold to make sure that I get Sam Darnold instead of having to take one of these quarterbacks or trying to run Mac Jones out there as a bridge quarterback. But if we're going through all the options, and not just Jared's option, but all the options, Aaron Rodgers absolutely has to be on the list. For starters, there's a chance that Aaron still has some game left. Let's not kid ourselves. The Jets are usually the problem, right? Have you noticed this year how much better everybody looks away from the Jets? How much better Sam Darnold looked with a real coach and a real receiver and a real team? Or how about Mekhi Becton, the first-round bust from the Jets, who, starting at guard, winning a Super Bowl with the Eagles? Secondly, and again, you have to remember the player we're dealing with here, and Aaron Rodgers, Aaron has something to prove. Aaron has a middle finger to stick in somebody's face. And this time it's the Jets. When Aaron has something to prove, he turns into the league MVP. When Aaron had something to prove, sticking his middle finger in the face of Brett Favre, Aaron did it. When Aaron had something to prove, sticking his middle finger in the face of Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur and all the guys for drafting Jordan Love, he did it. When Aaron went to the Jets, he was King Aaron. There was nobody's ass to show up. Robert Saleh, Nathaniel Hackett, the owner, everybody was on their knees for Aaron. That's when Aaron plays his worst. Aaron plays his best when he has a chip on his shoulder. I'll show you. So again, Aaron kind of stunk last year, but how much of that was the Jets, where everybody stinks, and how much of that was the fact that, hey, now Aaron's got something to prove to the Jets, who said, we don't want him. And third, all the other guys, and this is totally selfish, all the other guys kind of bore me. If the Titans sign Daniel Jones to a 1-year, $11 million contract, and then they draft Travis Hunter or they draft Abdul Carter, and so Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans going into the 2025 season, wake me up when training camp starts. Aaron Rodgers, that makes things interesting. Again, I don't know what the ceiling for Daniel Jones is, and nobody else does either. That's the whole point. That's the same with Mac Jones, same with Justin Fields. We're trying to find out, like we did with Sam Darnold in Minnesota last year. Like, can these guys actually play? Like we did with Tannehill when he came here. Can this guy actually play, or is he a backup? So when it comes to Aaron, we know Aaron can play. Now, can Aaron still play? That's a little bit of a question. But again, Aaron makes things interesting. Whereas waiting for kickoff to decide, can Daniel Jones be the guy? Again, wake me up when the season starts. So I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers is my guy. I'm not saying go get him the way I said it 3 years ago when I'm the one who broke the news that Aaron Rodgers had bought a home in Williamson County that, Ian, we later learned was
raw land.
Raw land out there in Williamson County. And back then, my heart was set on Aaron. People did not want to discuss it on the shows because they were like, oh, it's never going to happen. Aaron, that now people all the time are like, Aaron's got a home in Tennessee. And every time they say that, all I hear is Ian in my head saying,
it's raw land.
Raw land. Although that was 3 years ago, so I'm guessing that raw land has been kind of developed. Right?
I mean, he'd have enough time by now.
I mean, I guess. So I'm not saying Aaron is the list. I'm not saying Aaron would be my top choice. You know my top choice. But Aaron Rodgers and the Titans, it's certainly up for debate. And today, that's what we're going to do. Aaron Rodgers of the Titans. Why and why not? Again, for me, my choice is Sam Darnold. I'm signing Sam Darnold. He's the quarterback for the next 3 years, and we're going forward and building our team, and on we go. That's what I would do. But if I can't get Sam Darnold, Aaron or Daniel Jones, Aaron or Mac Jones, Aaron or Russell Wilson, Aaron or Justin Fields, Aaron or Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward with the first pick, Aaron or Jackson Dart at 35. I think it's all on the table. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in. Again, Aaron to the Titans. Is he on the list? Is he high on the list? What do we make of it? 615-737-1025. And there was a report that came out yesterday about Aaron that on the surface makes a lot of sense. But I have questions about it. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
But guys, also, I'm going to shift gears here. I do have some breaking news right now to report on the show. That's what we do. And it involves another Super Bowl MVP, and that is Aaron Rodgers. And guys, I've learned that Aaron Rodgers flew back to New Jersey this week to meet with the Jets about his future. Met with the team head coach and the GM, only to be told that they want to move on from him. Now, the thing is, what does Aaron want, his player or not? What happens? Did they trade him? Did they cut him? Whatever it is. But the fact that Aaron actually used his own plane to fly there to find out what the decision probably means that Aaron still wants to play another year, just not going to be for the Jets. How about that?
Well, how about flying back and having your girlfriend say we break it up?
But I will tell you this, it's better to do it now. But it's better to do it now than to do it later, because now Aaron Rodgers has the chance to go out and find another team, and the Jets have a chance to let everybody know we're going in a different direction.
Dude, I got to give Jay Glazer his props. You know, this dude gets original scoops on a weekly basis, saves them for TV. Like, do you realize how hard it is to save a scoop? Like, what happens with these Schefters and Rappaports, if they get a scoop, they can't tweet it fast enough. They're like, breaking news on Twitter, and then everybody else reacts. Glazer saves the breaking news for when he's on the shows and delivers it. Like, that was easy in 1993. It's not easy in the day of the internet, and Glazer still does it. So that was the scoopage on Super Bowl Sunday. Jay Glazer saying the Jets out on Aaron Rodgers, which means that Aaron is in the carousel, like the kiddie pool of potential quarterback options. And I think he should be on the list. Just like I think Daniel Jones should be on the list, even though I think he blows. Just like I think Mac Jones should be on the list. But there was a report that came out from Diana Rossini yesterday that I think a lot of people probably heard and weren't surprised by. And that was, they asked Aaron Rodgers if he was going to come back. Aaron Glenn and whoever that new general manager is that was handpicked by Aaron Glenn, they said, hey, if you're going to be the quarterback here in New York, you have to be willing to come to OTAs, and you have to give up the Pat McAfee show. And I think everybody out there says, makes sense. But I have questions. Because, again, the report was that the Jets said, you got to be at OTAs and you got to give up McAfee. Number one, did Aaron go to New York and meet with the Jets? As Jay Glazer pointed out, got on his plane, went out to New York, and the Jets looked at him and said, hey, man, if you want to be the quarterback here, you have to be at OTAs and you have to give up the McAfee show. And Aaron said no. Because if Aaron said no, then I'm not sure I want Aaron on the Titans. Like, if your free time with your OTAs is more important to you than setting the right example and being part of a team and learning a new playbook and all of those things, then I don't want you on the team. He needs to be at OTAs. Now, the McAfee stuff, we can discuss that off to the side because I think that's a pretty complicated issue. And by the way, the union should probably look into this as well when it comes to Aaron and the Jets saying, we don't want you at OTAs. Ian, what happens every year when somebody misses OTAs and I complain about it?
What do you mean?
Well, what's the response from everybody out there that's
it
pro
doesn't
team?
matter.
It's voluntary. Well, the teams aren't allowed to pretend like it's not, so that would be something the union would have a stick up their tush about. So for me, like, did Aaron sit down with the Jets and the Jets said, hey, man, come to OTAs and give up McAfee? And Aaron said, over my dead body. And they said, okay, goodbye, Aaron. Did that happen? Because if that did, then Aaron's not a fit for me. Or did the Jets sit down with Aaron and say, hey, we want you at OTAs and we want you to give up McAfee? And Aaron, hearing that, saying, hey, look, I like doing my ayahuasca in Costa Rica, and I like doing the McAfee hit where I can talk off every conspiracy theory there ever was to tell you that ketchup really isn't from tomatoes and things like that. But I'll give it up. I'll suck it up for the team. I'll do it. Did Aaron do that? And then the Jets still came back and said, yeah, no, thank you. Because if that's the case, that's a Jet problem. Like, was Aaron willing to make those sacrifices? Why would you, if you weren't even interested in Aaron Rodgers coming back, why would you even ask Aaron to do those things? So that is, to me, kind of okay, we need to get this one figured out. We need to know, did Aaron Rodgers tell the Jets, I'm not doing OTAs? Because if Aaron's not doing OTAs for the Titans, then cross him off the list and let's move on. Did Aaron look at the Jets and say, over my dead body will I give up my spot on the Pat McAfee show? Because if so, then Aaron's priorities probably aren't in the right spot. Or did the Jets ask Aaron to give up all those things and still say no thank you? That's like I got buddies that have been dating their girlfriends for a long time. And their girlfriends are kind of like, when are we getting married? I don't know if you guys have experienced that, hey, when am I getting that ring? Hey, when is it? That would be like that. And then when it's, will you marry me? Nah. That's what that would be if the Jets asked Aaron to come to OTAs, give up McAfee. He said yes to both, and they still said no. And with the Jets, there's absolutely no way to know that they didn't do that because they're stupid. Now, Aaron did himself no favors by going on the McAfee show and calling out the owner of the Jets' kids. No matter how screwed up that situation is, that's not a good idea. So I'll just say this. If I'm the Titans and we're discussing Aaron Rodgers on the list of possibilities, which he belongs on, I 100% want him at OTAs. And I probably want him off the McAfee show. Like, I probably want him off the McAfee show. And here's why I think I'd want him off the McAfee show. It's a really delicate issue because all these players nowadays have shows. They all have podcasts. Travis Kelce has a podcast. And everybody's got a show and everybody's got a platform and everybody's got a. And so for you to go to Aaron and say, hey, if you want to be the quarterback of this team, you have to give up doing the Pat McAfee show. That is taking money out of his pocket. Aaron makes over $1 million a year doing the Pat McAfee show. That is taking legit money out of his pocket. Nick Saban, the least distracted coach in the history of football, did the Pat McAfee show his last year. Why? Because they paid him. But if Aaron does give up the McAfee show to be the quarterback of the Titans, I do think that would show the rest of the locker room and show the fan base and show the organization that he is serious about being the Titans quarterback. And that's the one thing I ask of Aaron Rodgers. If you come in here, I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be 1 year or 2 years. It's certainly not going to be 3 or 4. So, again, this is like Brady to Tampa. I don't know how long you're going to do this for. And I don't know how good you are anymore. But the one thing you have to do is you have to show everybody that you are taking it seriously. And if you give up the McAfee show, which we know you love to do, and we know you make a lot of money from, if you give up the McAfee show, then that will show the fans, the owner, your teammates, Jared Stillman, that will show everybody that you are taking it seriously. But that said, I understand kind of how delicate the idea of telling the quarterback, hey man, give up your side hustle is in today's era where, again, Travis Kelce has his podcast. They have quarterbacks that are mic'd up every game for Netflix. Mahomes did that, won the Super Bowl. Aaron did the McAfee show and won 2 MVPs. So you're taking money out of his pocket. And that is what are you going to tell everybody else on the team? Hey, no doing interviews, no doing podcasts, no doing it. So that would be tough, to have that conversation with Aaron. And maybe we could talk about the McAfee show thing. I just feel like if you sit down with Aaron and you say, hey, we're okay with the McAfee show, but don't throw people under the bus. Don't do all your crazy stuff. It's either do the McAfee show and be Aaron or don't do the McAfee show. It's kind of, that's the reality. But again, When I go back to this idea of this report that the Jets asked Aaron to go to OTAs and the Jets asked Aaron to stop doing McAfee, I need to know what the response to that was. Did Aaron say, no, I'm not coming to OTAs. I'm Aaron freaking Rodgers. Did he do that? Because if he did, then he's no fit for me. Or did he say, yeah, I'm willing to do those things. I am committed to my football team. I'm committed to being a Jet. So I'm willing to do those things. And the Jets still said, no thanks. So I need a little bit more research done there, Diana. 615-737-1025. We'll go to your phones on this. 615-737-1025 on Aaron Rodgers. And plus, the one thing that I do not want to hear, which we'll do next, Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
Okay, so what we're saying is this means nothing in your eyes, just the fact that
There's other people that live in Nashville that are professional athletes. There's nice areas in Nashville all over the place. So if Aaron has raw land in Nashville without a house on it, how does that mean he's going to the Titans? Now he is close with Braves. He loves the head coach in Vrabel. The Titans are in the AFC, so all of that matches up.
Okay, so just quick follow-up. Raw land is the property because I do believe it was pitched as like a house, maybe.
Yeah.
It was assumed to be a house. What do you mean by raw land?
Did he buy a house?
No, it did just say property, but I think everybody assumed that it was a house was also there.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. There might be.
Okay.
No, he said raw land.
Sounds like he bought some raw land
Yeah,
there.
they bought some raw land. Okay, well, we appreciate that. That is becoming a story, though, as is everything that happens with your best friend.
That was the Pat McAfee show in January of 2022. Or maybe February, Ian. I can't remember. Was it January or February when we dropped this?
It was right around there. End of January, start of February. I don't know if it has. I think it was right at the beginning of February.
I want to say it was in between the week between the Super Bowl and the conference championship games when we unleashed the nugget that Aaron Rodgers had purchased a home in Nashville.
Yeah, it was probably right to start at the 1st of February there.
And I remember exactly how it all went down. I was told by somebody that Aaron Rodgers was moving in next door to somebody else. And I knew the somebody else, and I knew people close to the somebody else. And so I asked the somebody else, I said, is Aaron Rodgers moving in next door to this someone? And the somebody else told me yes. I said, really? And I said, yep. And then I did even more digging. And I found out that Aaron was open to joining the Titans. And I sat on it for about a day because this was like Saturday, Sunday. Caroline was on the show at that point. I had said to Caroline, I was like, yeah, I got a bomb and I'm going to drop it. And she was like, oh, that's some tea. And we told Ian about it. We looped him in on it. And I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. The first segment of the show, I told Caroline, I said, the first segment of the show, I'm going to report that Aaron Rodgers has purchased a home in Williamson County. I believe I said Brentwood. And the freaking guys at A to Z Sports got a stick up their rear end about, no, it's Franklin, not Brentwood. And it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But again, I said, all right, we're going to put this out there. We put it out there and it exploded. And it was all over everywhere. And now whenever they talk about Aaron Rodgers and they talk about Tennessee, they're like, he does own a home there. I'll never forget ESPN, discussing Aaron and the Titans at the bottom. ESPN confirms report about Aaron Rodgers' home in Nashville. So I got one thing to say. As 3 years later, we do Aaron to the Titans talk. If you're going to talk about Aaron to the Titans and you're going to reference our report, you have to acknowledge, Buck, that you poo-pooed it 3 years ago. And again, the report was not Aaron's joining the Titans. I never reported that. I never thought that was going to happen. I reported that Aaron had purchased a home, which A.J. Hawk confirmed on the McAfee show, saying it was raw land and that he was open to joining the Titans, which A.J. Hawk also confirmed. So don't go poo-pooing that 3 years ago and now bringing it up. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland has been waiting patiently and is going to kick us off today. Adam, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
I would rather have Levis than have him. Honestly, you get somebody that's you're going to have the 4,000 yards, but at what expense? Like, you need stability. You've talked about it over and over. You beat your head against the wall talking about, I'm sick of these people not taking it responsibly, how they act around here. Nobody's professional. They're all goobers. Everybody says, can't secure a model and everything's just hot. That's all Aaron Rodgers is weird sayings all the time. There's nothing serious about him. I'd rather have Levis. Like, at least we've been through it with Levis, and we know that there's going to be a couple of games that he wows us. Aaron Rodgers, you never know where his head is. What if he pushes our coach? What if he acts like a weirdo towards our coach? He's not going to give up McAfee. He doesn't do McAfee for money. The only reason he does McAfee is because he wants people talking about Aaron Rodgers. So, no, dude, I don't want him. I thought it was a joke when you talked about it the first time. Like,
So
Yeah,
let me ask you
he
this question,
bought a house
Adam,
here, but I
and I
don't
mean
want it.
this. I mean this in all seriousness.
Okay.
Would you rather for sure lose with Levis than possibly win some with Aaron?
No, I would rather, if Aaron Rodgers is going to win, but how could he possibly, how could ever the stars align so perfectly that he's going to take it seriously? He's going to show up to camp. He's going to be early. He's going to set a good example. When he's never done that, it's always been about Aaron. And then you got to put him behind a bad offensive line with no receivers and no tight end. It's not going to work. No, absolutely not, dude.
Well, I think there has to be an idea that the Titans are going, thank you, Adam. I think there has to be an idea that the Titans are going to go out there and get offensive linemen and get receivers. You know, I hear this all the time, this idea of, you know, why would anyone want to come here? The line is so bad. It's like, you know, you did just hire this guy from Kansas City. He's a little chunky. He kind of looks like if J-Rob and Chad Brinker had a baby. You know, you just hired this guy from Kansas City to make sure that your line won't suck so bad and that you won't not have receivers. Although the problem right now with Kansas City is that their line sucks and they don't have any receivers. But you hired that guy to keep the bad things from continuing to happen. You know how Rand Carthon just ignored right tackle. Like that's what they're trying to not do going forward. So that's with every team who's got a bad line and has got a bad this and that. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, if Chad Brinker runs it back with Will Levis as the quarterback, everybody's getting fired at the end of the year because Levis is not going to change. At least he's not going to change here. So if you run it back with Levis and you win 5 games, everybody's fired. Brinker's fired, Borgonzi's fired, Callahan's fired, and they're not going to do that. And I think the one thing that I do think is at least worth saying is Aaron still almost threw for 4,000 yards last year. And how much of the Jets' problems are Jet-related issues? Like, how much of this, everybody goes to the Jets and stinks. How much of it's Aaron's fault? Because everybody goes to the Jets and stinks. Joey from Bellevue said, PK said this morning, he said Aaron refused OTAs and walking away from the McAfee show, and if the Titans were to sign him and let him do whatever, it would make the Titans organization look even more silly than the Jets. So I did not hear Paul say that. Ian, did you hear Paul say that Aaron refused to go to OTAs and refused to go to the McAfee show?
No, I did not hear that.
I mean, that's some pretty like if PK said that, and I don't know if he did or he didn't. I'm assuming he probably didn't say it exactly like that. If that's the case, that is some pretty major reporting on the part of Paul Kaharski. If he's that I haven't heard that Aaron refused OTAs. Supposedly, Aaron went to OTAs last year, except for the mandatory minicamp, which he missed to go to Egypt. And the year before that, Aaron did go to OTAs with the Jets. Now, we know he wasn't going to OTAs with the Packers, but that was basically his way of holding out. Was he was like, hey, I'm out. Like, I'm not with that. But if PK is saying that Aaron refused those things, then I'm not interested in Aaron. If that is the truth. But I don't know that. One texter says, Aaron Rodgers is a clear-cut candidate to come in and help a rookie quarterback after several failed attempts to launch with the Jets. If he wants to be put in that role, bring him here. If he still thinks he's going to be the star of the show in the future, then we don't need it. I mean, my thing is, if I'm bringing Aaron Rodgers in, I'm not bringing Aaron Rodgers in to mentor a rookie. Though I am probably going to draft a rookie to put as the third-string quarterback. But I'm going to tell Aaron, hey, you're brought in here to lead the team and to be the starting quarterback. It's Brian Callahan's job to grow the rookie. Now, would I want the rookie being around Aaron and seeing it? Yes. Benjamin said Diana Rossini reported it and PK retold it. Again, all I saw from the Diana report was that the Jets asked Aaron to show up to OTAs and to give up the McAfee show. I did not see Diana Rossini report that Aaron refused it. That I did not see. And we know Diana's reporting doesn't come from Aaron because Aaron hates Diana. So there's no way that came from his camp. So it had to come from the Jets, which is a very, again, I want to know, did they ask Aaron to do those things? Aaron said yes, and the Jets still said no, thank you? Or did Aaron say, no, I want to do the McAfee show? And I need a direct answer on that. 615-737-1025. Chris Sanders joins us next on the program. Stillman and Company, 1025 and 1063 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there about the Nationals' best deal this week, which is 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. 312 Pizza Company serves the best pizza in town as well as Chicago-style eats like Chicago dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and more. Head to thegamenational.com/deals now to get half off a $30 gift card to 312 Pizza Company while supplies last. Stillman and Company, we got a nugget here from Jordan Schultz.
Yeah, we do.
The Jacksonville Jaguars will interview former Tennessee Titans general manager John Robinson for their open GM position. Robinson also interviewed with the Jets earlier this offseason. I wouldn't hold my breath that John Robinson's going to get that job, but let me just say this. I hope he does, because then there's a scoreboard. Then there's a up. Amy was right. You all were right, or Amy was wrong. Chris Sanders joins us now on the program. Chris, you just heard that. The breaking news, Jacksonville already has hired their coach, Liam Cohn. They're going to interview J-Rob for the general manager spot.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like the idea of hiring the coach before hiring the general manager, and we saw what happened when Robinson didn't pick his coach the last time.
Right.
But how worried would you be if John Robinson got hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Man, it's going to be interesting, because the thing about it, say if he goes over there and he wants to prove himself that he is a great general manager, and he goes there and he wins the AFC South, instead of the talk being about the Tennessee Titans and the things that they do, it's going to be talk about what John Robinson did. So if he does go over there, it's going to be like a soap opera each and every week, especially when we play him 2 times a year.
So you think it'll be a soap opera here about what John Robinson's doing there? It won't matter there, will it? Like, it won't matter in their building that they hired him.
No, it'll be here, because there's so much stuff going on. Because just like when John Robinson here, everybody wants him to answer some. We want some questions answered that happened while he was here. About the roster, about why did he get fired, all these things. So now he goes over there with Jacksonville and he gets hired and he turns that whole situation around. How does that look on the organization? It's going to be interesting.
Who would you be more worried about running the Jacksonville Jaguars, John Robinson or Ran Carthon?
No, would I be worried about? I mean,
would you be worried about J-Rob running the Jags?
I mean, I would. I would a little bit. And the reason why I say this is because when he came in, he did do some good things. He did bring some good pieces in here. He did turn this situation around when it was in disarray. So, if he did it here and he does it there, I would be more worried at this point, John Robinson, as opposed to Ran Carthon.
Would you be worried at all if Ran Carthon interviewed for the Jags job or got the Jags job?
I mean, it's still unknown. I mean, I know he's a great guy. He's a great man, but he only had a chance 2 years to do it actually here. So I don't really know. The verdict's not out. Now you got a situation with John Robinson to where he actually helped turn this franchise around when it was in disarray. So I would have to go with John Robinson as opposed to, Ran Carthon for now.
Chris Sanders is on our program. Chris, Aaron Rodgers is not welcomed back by the Jets. Is he on the list in your mind to be the next quarterback of the Titans? Yes or no? Why or why not?
If me personally, or do you think what they think they're going to do? Me personally?
You personally.
This is just me. If I'm the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, and I'm going to say the vision that, Bergonzi said. He said this. He said we want stability and culture of the organization. So if I'm bringing a guy in, there's no disrespect. I'm talking about the player, not the man, that you come in here and every time it's disarray. And if that's the situation, why would you bring a quarterback in that's going to bring disarray to an organization to where they're trying to build themselves back up? Get somebody in here. This is just my opinion. I don't want to make people mad, but I'm going to bring some people in here that's a leader of men, that's going to make people better, that's going to say, okay, you know what, offensive coordinator, if you want me to change the play on third down, I'm going to listen to you as opposed to doing what I want to do. So if it was me personally, I would bypass him. I think he's going to be a Hall of Fame player. I think he's a great quarterback. But as for my organization, and I'm building them back up, I'm going to get somebody here with stability and has a culture mind reference.
Okay, so who is that you're referring to that screams culture builder at the quarterback spot?
I mean, Donald, somebody like Donald or Derek Carr, even Derek Carr, to where even though he's been a solid quarterback in the league, I watch some of the games that he plays. And I watch when he played with the Raiders and played with the New Orleans Saints. He's coaching those guys on the sidelines. And then when the organization or situation goes bad, he never throws somebody under the bus. He always says we instead of me. So I want a guy like that that's going to say, you know what, as a leader of men to make people better, it starts with the quarterback. And I think one of those guys will make a difference.
Chris Sanders is with us. I went to the Super Bowl and I talked to all the draft analysts and I talked to all the people around the league. And everything I heard was these quarterbacks are not worthy of the number one pick.
Yeah.
Does that kind of talk scare you from Ward and Sanders?
it may scare you a little bit, but here's the thing. It goes back to, what's going on in those meetings room. We have Berganzi, you have Brian Callahan, you have Brinker, you have all those guys for making the decision. Does he fit our mold? Does he fit what he wants us to do? And if they do, then take one of those guys. But it all depends on what you're looking for. But I know all the analysts are saying that they're not this, they can't do this. They're probably second and third and fourth rounders. That's great. But if it's a good fit for what this team is doing, then take them. So I can't really go by what a lot of people are saying outside of the building. It all depends on what they think inside of the building.
Chris Sanders is with us on the program. Chris, what do you make of the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles have so many guys on their team that were, first team all SEC at Georgia and Alabama? And I don't know about you, but I watched them play and I'm like, I remember that guy in college. And I almost wonder if the NFL has gotten too obsessed with trying to find the guy at a Scarbini Tech and not really focused on the guy at Alabama, Georgia, etc., the way the Eagles have. Do you make anything of that?
Nah, I mean, it all depends because sometimes you can get a high draft pick and it doesn't pan out, but sometimes you can get a low draft pick that can pan out. So I don't think you can really look at it like that, okay, it's just Alabama guys and not the Scarbini. It just goes back to what's the good fit for your team. I mean, look at these guys that you have on Philadelphia. I mean, you got, I don't know, was it Milton, Williams, Jordan, Carter, all those guys. Those guys are unknown guys that we really, really don't know about. But when they get in the league,
Carter was not an unknown guy. Jalen Carter was an incredibly known guy at Georgia.
Yeah, but when's the last time we heard of him?
I mean, we saw him every week in the SEC dominate. What are you talking about?
Okay, if you go somewhere and you said, okay, man, who's Jordan Davis?
We saw those boys dominate for Georgia in the SEC.
But now they're dominating in the league, and we saw a great picture of that in the championship game. That's what I'm saying.
Right. My point is these boys dominated in the SEC.
They did.
And if you dominate in the SEC, chances are you're probably going to be pretty good in the NFL, right? But we don't look at it like that normally.
All right, that's true, but I mean, look at Devontae Smith. I mean, he's an Alabama guy, and this is the first Alabama guy to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Again, Devontae Smith won the Heisman in college. He was a bad boy.
He's a bad boy, absolutely. But then now he's getting to the league, and now he finally got the echelon of winning the Super Bowl. And I just think that it all depends on what you're doing on this team. It's just totally different.
I just think that if you dominate in college in the SEC or you dominate in college at Ohio State, we need to look at you more than just what the measurables say. I'll use a guy on Ohio State's team, Sawyer, the linebacker. You know who I'm talking about?
He's a dog. Yeah, he's a dog, man.
Okay. So I think that he'll probably not test very well because he's probably a little too slow.
Yeah.
And so he might. But I'm telling you, if this guy's going to dominate college football at Ohio State, let's put him in the pros.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. Look at the coach that just left here, Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel was the exact same way. Mike Vrabel wasn't fast, but he had the intangibles. He was smart. He was instinctive, and that's the same thing with Sawyer. He might not blow it out in the 40. He might not have a great vertical jump. He might not even have a 10-yard shuttle, but it's the intangibles.
Was Mike Vrabel a great college player? You played with him.
Yes, I did. He wasn't the biggest, the fastest, but he was smart, man. That's why you see he's at the league and he's a head coach because this is what he did that made him so special is he paid attention to detail. I know that we say that with coaching, talking, that's great, but he actually paid attention to details because he knew that he wasn't the best athlete, but I guarantee you I'm going to tear your face mask off. I'm going to tear your shoulder pads off to get to where I need to get. That's what made him a good player.
Chris Sanders, as always on our program. Chris, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you, brother. Later.
Yep. Chris Sanders, as always, on our show. By the way, speaking of the Eagles, I have a bone to pick with ESPN this morning. Ian, you should have seen the stat they put up on the screen for Mike Greenberg to lecture us on how good Jaylen Hurts was. The stat was Jaylen Hurts is the first quarterback to start and win a national championship and a Super Bowl. He's the first quarterback to ever do that. Now, granted, the national championship game is like 20 years old. So all these other guys, like Roger Staubach, I think won a national title at Navy, but he never played a quote-unquote national title game. Jaylen Hurts got benched in that national championship game.
Technically.
He technically got benched or he technically started and won it?
Well, I guess you could say both. I guess
he technically started and won it. He But not just technically. I mean, he got benched.
I guess Tua came in, huh?
Yeah. I mean, again, if this were baseball, you don't get credit for that win. Tua's the pitcher of record in that game. Just so misleading. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And I got to say this, there should be a lot of you. There's something, again, some news today that came out that as a Titan fan, I don't want to have happen. As a fan of entertainment, I do want to have happen. But you all, you people, you all should be praying this happens. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102 after the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. You heard an Ian's update right there, and we brought it up with Chris Sanders in the previous segment. The Jacksonville Jaguars are scheduled to interview John Robinson, former Tennessee Titans general manager, to be the next GM of the Jags. Now, I don't think Robinson's going to get the job because I don't think they give GM second opportunities. But if anybody does give GM second opportunities, it's Shad Khan in Jacksonville. Now, let me just say this. I asked Chris, I said, would you worry about John Robinson being the next general manager of the Jags? And he said a little bit. So there is the Titans fan in me. And then there is, I guess, the part of me where I remove my fandom and the talk show host me, I guess. I don't know. Ian, may I get a little preachy on this program here for a second?
Sure.
The Titan fan in me does not want John Robinson to be the next general manager of the Jags. Because unlike a lot of you, I think John Robinson is a very good general manager. Now, do I think John Robinson screwed a bunch of stuff up? You bet your ass I think he screwed a bunch of stuff up. And I think that the problem is that John Robinson, the lessons that he learned the hard way here, he would have with him in Jacksonville. So if Jacksonville were to hire John Robinson, they'd be getting the good of John Robinson and not the bad. Like if it came to trading Brian Thomas Jr., who wanted an extension, he probably wouldn't do it this time around. But the talk show host me, the cares about being fair me, I'm going to pray. I'm going to put my hands together and I'm going to pray to God. And I'm going to pray that Jacksonville hires John Robinson to be their general manager. And I'm going to pray for it. And I'm going to pray to God because he helped Joshua, the Battle of Jericho. He helped Daniel get out of the lion's den. And he helped Gilligan get off the island. So I'm going to pray. Because I want the scoreboard. And if John Robinson goes to Jacksonville, then we'll finally see who was right and who was wrong. Again, everything Amy Adams Strunk has thought and done since she's fired John Robinson on that Tuesday in December of 2022 has turned into utter crap. Whether it was hiring Rand Carthon and shotgun marriaging him with Vrabel, whether it was hiring Brian Callahan so that he and Rand Carthon could collaborate, I mean, you have earned your spot at the bottom of the league. That's why you're picking for the number one pick. That's why. So we know that at least her half of it, she definitely screwed up. But the amount of people, and again, that firing of John Robinson in the middle of the season while they were 7-5 and in first place is the stupidest thing I have ever seen an NFL owner do publicly. And then she sent Vrabel out there to answer questions for it. The dumbest thing I have ever seen. And so I want to see, because when she did that, as a Titan fan, I put my head in my hands and I thought, oh no. Oh no. At first I thought, hey, the NFL investigated that Todd Downing DUI from the plane from Green Bay, and maybe J-Rob was hosting a kegger on the plane, and so he had to go. Nope, wasn't that. Maybe he sexually harassed somebody in the office. Nope, wasn't that. Maybe he, had the tickets that were set aside for the John Robinson Children's Foundation and was selling them underneath the... Nope, wasn't that. Amy just hauled off in the middle of the season and fired him. Because that's, I guess, what she thought was a good idea. And as a Titan fan, the one thing that I know, and Dallas Cowboy fans, I mean, they're rooting for Jerry Jones' death. Because that's the only way that Jerry will actually run that team correctly. And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just saying that Dallas Cowboy fans know that Jerry's not giving up his post. And so when it comes to the owner, you don't get to change the owner. You don't get to pick the owner change. You don't get to do any of that. You have to deal with your owner. If you're a Cowboy fan, you have to deal with Jerry. I'm sorry. Until Jerry is no longer with us, you have to deal with Jerry, which means you're probably not going to go to the Super Bowl. And then after Jerry, you're going to have to deal with Steven, and that might be just as bad. So I knew as a Titan fan, you have to deal with Amy. And if Amy's going to haul off and fire the general manager in the middle of the season when you're in first place, the middle of the work week, oh my God. But there were so many of you out there that when it happened, were like, yeah! Yeah! Amy! She wouldn't stand for this anymore. Now people don't like Amy because what her moves have yielded between firing Robinson and hiring Carthon and firing Vrabel and hiring Callahan is this unmitigated, disastrously awful football team. But at the time, there were a lot of you out there that were like, yeah! And then every time Rand Carthon did something stupid, you guys would highlight it and say, well, it's all John Robinson. Find out John Robinson. He missed the draft. You guys do know that every single general manager misses, right? Like the great Howie Roseman drafted Andre Dillard in the first round. A year later, drafted Jalen Reagor in the first round. That does happen. The difference is those owners don't haul off and fire the general manager for busting on a first-round pick. They fired the general manager for losing. That's not what J-Rob did around here. John Robinson inherited the worst football team in the NFL. 3-13, number one pick, the same spot you were in today. He inherited that team. And overnight, they were 9-7. He won 61% of his games. He made the playoffs 4 times. He won 2 division titles and was en route to a 3rd. I think he's a good general manager. I think he's a good evaluator of talent. And I think John Robinson's biggest problem was at the end, I think everybody got very defensive of their role and their authority, whether it was Robinson, Vrabel, or Amy. I think it was all 3 of them. Everybody wanted to know, they wanted to show everybody their authority. That's why Amy spent 2 years after firing John Robinson preaching collaboration. What did Albert Breer say on the show last week at the Super Bowl? He said, yeah, Amy wanted the building to be a happier place. Well, I think John Robinson's probably learned his lesson, which is the real sad part of this. I bet you he's probably learned his lesson. And the building will probably be a happier place in Jacksonville if he becomes a general manager there. Again, I don't think he'll be the GM in Jacksonville, but I hope he is. Because I cannot wait to see who's right and who's wrong. I love the fact that Mike Vrabel is now the head coach of the New England Patriots, and that team, now they do have a young quarterback, but that team sucks just as bad as your team. Because now we're going to see who's right and who's wrong. The national media that, oh, Vrabel, he's the best coach. How dare they fire him? Maybe they're right. We'll see. So I want Robinson to get a job. I want Vrabel. I'm glad he's got a job. And let's go from there. Again, the Titan fan in me would be doing cartwheels if I heard that Jacksonville was interviewing Rand Carthon. The Titan fan in me is very worried about the idea of John Robinson being the general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because I know John Robinson's a good general manager. Because I watched him do it. But there should be a lot of you out there that, yeah, Amy, way to go. There should be a lot of those people that should be begging and praying, the same way I'm praying, that John Robinson become the next general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's probably not going to happen. because, again, they don't like to give out second opportunities in this league. It'll probably be some guy that Liam Cohen knows from the Rams or something like that who will be the general manager there, because apparently the package deal is the new thing. But when I see that report from Jordan Schultz that John Robinson is interviewing to be the next general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Titan fan in me is scared to death. But the talk show host in me, okay, fans, you people wanted this. That guy in me, very excited. And if J-Rob sucks, I'll admit I was wrong. And if Vrabel can pick the players in New England and they win the Super Bowl, I'll admit I was wrong. But boy, am I excited. Please hire John Robinson to be the general manager in Jacksonville. Your phones, 615-737-1025. We continue along Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. I mean, here's what I love about this. This is why I want John Robinson, who I actually think is probably better at his job, the old general manager with Vrabel. Yeah. I think he's probably a better GM than Vrabel is a coach. But what I really, I want him to get a GM job, and I'm glad Vrabel has this job with a terrible team right now because I want to see the scoreboard. Like, somebody's going to be right about this. Somebody's going to be wrong. We have no idea now, but at some point, we will know who was right and who was wrong. And if Vrabel goes and wins a Super Bowl with the Patriots, I'll say I was wrong, and Vrabel can smack me on the tush if it makes him feel better. I don't know. That was me last week at the Super Bowl on the Felger and Mass program. And as I said there, I think John Robinson and nobody, because again, I know, Vrabel was a coach and Vrabel was cool, and you see the coach on TV. But Mike Vrabel, I think John Robinson is a better general manager than Mike Vrabel was a coach. Again, John Robinson won before Mike Vrabel got there. Now, the way that Robinson handled himself with the malarkey thing, I didn't think was very good, but he built that team before Vrabel got here, which people just seem to completely forget. And I will be fascinated to see Vrabel, when he doesn't inherit a playoff team, what that will look like in New England. But let me just say this, because I hear a lot of people that are like, A.J. Brown, John Robinson traded away A.J. Brown. He sucks. You do realize, as much as I know that was a mistake, and you know that was a mistake, you do realize John Robinson probably realizes that was a mistake too. Like, I don't know about you in your own life. I'll speak for myself in my own life. It's not like I look back at the last 35 years and say, you know what? I got them all right all the time, and if I could do it again, I would do it the exact same way every single time. No, I have some regrets in my life. And so if Jacksonville were to get John Robinson, Jacksonville would be getting the John Robinson who realized, I'm not really the Messiah. When it comes to being general manager, I'm just a good football evaluator. So maybe next time when we have a superstar wide receiver, we'll just pay him. Instead of we can't have that kind of attitude here. That's called learning from your mistakes. Maybe he won't. I don't know. That's why I love the scoreboard. But again, oh my God, he traded A.J. Brown. I said this to Thomas Dimitrov last week. I don't know if it was on the air or off the air. So if it was off the air, I apologize. But Thomas and I were talking last week at the Super Bowl. And I said to Thomas, we were talking about how GMs don't get second jobs. And he said, he goes, as a GM, no matter how well you did as general manager, all anybody seems to think about is the worst thing at the end that led to you getting fired. With Thomas Dimitrov, we don't talk about the fact that when he built up the Atlanta Falcons, they went to two separate NFC title games, kind of two eras of Falcon football, the Mike Smith and the Dan Quinn. We don't talk about the fact that they won an NFC title. We don't talk about the fact that they went to the Super Bowl. We don't talk about the good draft picks that they made. But we do talk about the bad. And I said to Thomas, it's just like John Robinson. All they ever talk about with John Robinson is A.J. Brown. But we don't talk about the fact that he won 61% of his games. We don't talk about the fact that they had the number one seed. John Robinson didn't throw 3 interceptions against Cincinnati Bengals. Just like Thomas Dimitrov didn't blow a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl. The general manager can only do so much. He doesn't play the game. And that takes me to coaches. See, what's different with coaches is you see them on the sideline. And you see them after they get let go. You see them doing these jobs, at Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator at Dallas. So when it comes to Dan Quinn, nobody ever talks about the fact that Dan Quinn blew a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl as head coach. But if he was an executive, that's all they'd remember. And right now, Ian, off the top of your head, who do you think is considered the best general manager in the NFL right now?
Philly guy, Roseman, probably.
Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman gave Carson Wentz $79 million. He traded 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, and a fourth-round pick to be able to draft Carson Wentz. He took Andre Dillard in the first round. He took Jalen Reagor, one selection ahead of Justin Jefferson in the first round. Should they have fired him? Again, those were mistakes that were made. But I do wonder how much Howie learned from those mistakes. Have you noticed that ever since he gave up on Carson Wentz from North Dakota State and stopped drafting Andre Dillard from Scarbini Tech and Jalen Reagor from TCU, look at who Howie Roseman goes and gets in the draft. Jalen Carter, Georgia. Devontae Smith, Alabama. Their entire team is an SEC all-star team with one guy from Toledo in there. Now, there are some other guys that have developed along the way, late-round picks that have made it, like Reed Blankenship, I think was a UDFA from MTSU. But for the most part, it's Nakobe Dean. It's Jordan Davis. That's called learning on the job. Who's to say if John Robinson had stayed that the next time an A.J. Brown situation would have come up that John wouldn't have said, nope, we'll do this. But again, all you people, A.J. Brown, oh, he's upset. Right. And then at 7-5 in first place, he spanked the goalpost and she fired him. And you people loved it. Because that's like the wrestling community that just gets up out of their seats when The Rock comes out and says, "You jabroni." And it was like, ah! And that's what happened. But this is football. This isn't about, what's the most interesting story. This is about building a good football team. And John Robinson knows how to do it. 615-737-1025. One texter says, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. If Mike Borgonzi comes in here and has a run like the Chiefs are on, would your opinion change? Because we would have gone through the suck to eventually get to being a top organization. So here's the deal about the run the Chiefs are on. And here's really the deal with about 95% of the teams in the NFL. And Philadelphia is not in this boat because with Philadelphia, it starts at the owner. If Mike Borgonzi if you were to become the Chiefs, now I'm not saying that I would take it for granted because I wouldn't. I'd love every second of it. But if you get the guy at quarterback, let's say it's Cam Ward. If you were to get the guy at quarterback and you were to have a 15, 20-year run of excellence, that'd be great. But I'd also recognize it for what it is, which is you got lucky. Kansas City got lucky. Andy Reid got fired at just the right time. They hired him, and Andy Reid's a genius, and that's why they are where they are. Indianapolis got lucky. They picked Peyton Manning, they had Bill Polian, and they were relevant for 15 years. New England got lucky with Tom Brady because they can't get out of their own way. And I am convinced Vrabel is going to fail up there, and I'll be okay with that. Vrabel is going to fail up there in New England because he can't pick the players. But for 20 years, they had Tom Brady. I think it was Mike Mularkey one time did a podcast. He was talking about getting fired. And he said, I thought we did a pretty good job, but apparently, everybody in New England believes that there's some secret sauce there and not that they got lucky with Tom Brady 20 years ago. Well, it seems now that the proof is in the pudding. It was that they got lucky with Tom Brady. We'll see how North Carolina's football team does. But if Borgonzi turns this thing into the Chiefs, where it's all about one guy, then I'll say, hey, this is about being lucky. And let's enjoy it while it lasts. One texter says, we don't even know if it was Robinson who wanted to trade A.J. Brown. Robinson went to the podium and said, I made this decision. And I'm going to think that he did that. So I'm not going to say the A.J. Brown thing wasn't on John Robinson. That was on John Robinson. And I'm not going to say he didn't. I mean, that would be a very convenient narrative to start spinning to say, actually it wasn't. It was Johnny who made that decision and not John Robinson, but I'm not going to do that. He made that decision and it was a poor choice. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So I think Aaron Rodgers is on the list as far as the Titans quarterback search is concerned. But there's one thing I'm really starting to really struggle to understand in all of this. And we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
AJ, coming over from Tennessee and then to Philadelphia, I was ecstatic when you got here, man. It's been a big transformation in your career, but you got to be satisfied with just the outcome of everything, regardless of how it looked.
Yeah. It's truly a blessing. You know, I appreciate my time in Tennessee, but Howie came and got me, and Howie does a great job each and every year preparing us and getting a great team together. Yeah. And I'm glad he did. And, and his team went through tough times, came up short one time, got here. The next year we crumbled a little bit, but it's all worth it.
That was A.J. Brown after the Super Bowl. Again, oh, John Robinson's so bad. He traded away A.J. Brown. I get it. But good GMs, good coaches make bad choices. Howie Roseman, $79 million, and all those picks for Carson Wentz. Andre Dillard in the first round. One texter says, Isaiah Wilson, Caleb Farley, Vic Beasley, Jadeveon Clowney, John Robinson sucked.
Julio.
See, to me, you're missing out the big ones. Like, to me, the biggest John Robinson blunder, nobody's going to agree with this, but to me, the biggest John Robinson blunder in his tenure as general manager was drafting Corey Davis with the 5th pick of the 17th draft. Because the 17th draft was freaking loaded. Like, some of you people just see first-round pick and you think they're all the same. Like, look at a trade chart. The value of the 5th pick compared to the value of the 27th pick is not even remotely in the same ballpark. The 27th pick, and any NFL talent evaluator will tell you this, the value of the 27th pick is infinitely closer to the value of the 47th pick than it is to the value of the 7th pick. That's why when guys move up in the first round, they have to move heaven and earth in order to be able to do it. You want to move 5 spots in the 4th? That's pretty easy. But when it comes to moving up to number 4, it's like, yeah, that's going to cost an arm and a leg. Now, I don't know what trades were out there, but Blake Bedingfield, who was a part of that draft, wrote at paulkaharski.com that they took Corey Davis, who they had a mid-first round grade on. And again, I don't know how true that is or isn't, but they took Corey Davis, who they had a mid-first round grade on, because they needed a wide receiver. And I'm like, that is so stupid. And that Corey Davis, that 5th pick was such a valuable asset because it was such a loaded draft and it was such a high pick and there were trades and other things. That's the one that I just cannot get over. And every time I bring it up, Corey Curtis is like, but they got nothing out of Isaiah Wilson. I'm like, right. But you are infinitely more likely to bust picking 28th than what you have to get if you're picking 5th. Like that, there's a huge difference. Somebody sent me a tweet, there's some people that like are not really media people that are kind of fake media people, but now everybody, you just need an iPad and a microphone and you can have a show. And I mean, some of these people don't even live in town and they quote unquote cover the team. And somebody tried to make a point to me about, how the Chiefs busted with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the 32nd pick in the draft. Like, the hit rate on the 32nd pick is not the same as the 5th pick. You're going to bust when you're picking that high because those players ain't that good. They're good. They ain't that good. They're not picking 3rd in a draft. So when you sit there and you tell me the Farley thing was ridiculous because of the injuries, again, something I think John Robinson's probably learned from, which worries me about Jacksonville. But the one that gets me that nobody ever talks about is I thought that Corey Davis pick was just a horrendous decision. And then the Julio Jones trade.
All those wide receivers in those first 9 in that draft, bad reaches there for those first 3. Davis,
Best
Mike Williams, and then
available.
John Ross are all pretty bad.
The NFL, well, Williams was okay.
That's true. I guess
NFL,
7th overall. Woof.
The NFL has this thing where teams have decided to go into the draft and treating it like free agency 2.0, and that's not really what the point of the draft is. The point of free agency is I need a tight end, let me go buy a tight end. The point of the draft is I'm the worst team, I get the best player. But what happens is teams go into this saying, I need a tight end, so then they just go take a tight end. And I don't think that's very smart. I think you need to go into the draft and you need to say, okay, like, we need to take the best player. And if Corey Davis had a mid-first round grade, I highly doubt that with that 5th pick, Corey Davis was the best player on that board. That, to me, was a disaster of a pick. And the Julio trade was a disastrous trade. And you didn't have to make it. Nobody was coming for Julio. You didn't have to do it. So those are the two that I look at, and I'm like, man. But the Isaiah Wilson thing, like, I'm like, you're going to bust on the 28th pick. Howie Roseman busted on Andre Dillard. Again, he wasn't picking 3rd when he did it, but, like, that happens. One texter says, maybe the reason A.J. Brown has been so successful in the Super Bowl was because he was throwing to himself. Ha, 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 ha. One texter says to me, and this is where I struggle when it comes to, like, having legitimate arguments, is somebody said, John Robinson's record on first-round picks and re-signing his draft picks was worst in the NFL, which I don't know if that's true or not, but the first-round picks, you know, Rashaan Evans, not a good pick. Like, there is some truth to that. The text says, John Robinson also inherited a good team and then got lucky early. Once you say that, I can't argue with you because you're just now either inherently dishonest or you are absolutely uneducated on the situation. Factually, John Robinson inherited the worst team in the NFL. They had the number 1 pick. This is not basketball or hockey where there is a draft lottery. If you have the number 1 pick, it is because you are the worst team. So when you say things like, John Robinson's so bad, he inherited a good team, Mike Vrabel inherited a good team. John Robinson did not. Factually, he inherited the worst team. Factually, he won 61% of his games. Factually, he made the playoffs in year 2. Factually, they won 2 division titles. All this other stuff is just like, you know, well, I want to be right, so I'm going to make up some bull crap. And I can't argue with that. When you just start making things up that are factually not true, I don't know what to say to that. Joel says, Davis played, unlike Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Farley. So Chris Hinton played. You probably don't even know who Chris Hinton is. Chris Hinton played guard for the Baltimore and then later Indianapolis Colts. And you know why I bring up Chris Hinton's name, Ian?
Why is that?
Chris Hinton wasn't bad because Chris Hinton was the player that the then Baltimore Colts acquired in exchange for John Elway. Again, Chris Hinton, not bad. Had a solid career. Played 177 games, made a handful of Pro Bowls, and again, not bad. But he was traded for John Elway. He was taken with the 4th overall pick in the 83 draft. You know, the 83 draft that had Hall of Famers, Jimbo Covert behind him, Bruce Matthews, Jim Kelly, Dan Marino, Darrell Green. Now you tell me, was that a good pick or not? Baltimore had the number 1 pick that year. Again, they ended up with Chris Hinton. They drafted John Elway, but they ended up with Chris Hinton. Chris Hinton made 7 Pro Bowls. Was it a good pick? The other guys they could have had, Elway, Eric Dickerson, and Hall of Famers on Hall of Famers. There is a difference between a high pick and what the expectation for production is and a low first-round pick. Isaiah Wilson was a low first-round pick. Those are going to bust. Again, you don't want them to bust, but it happens. Keith Bullock was a low first-round pick. That is a great low first-round pick. Keith Bullock didn't go to 7 Pro Bowls like Chris Hinton. But Chris Hinton did. You know, we remember him because, again, they traded John freaking Elway for it. Unbelievable. 615-737-1025. So, I do have a question that is kind of Titans related. Not totally Titans related, but is kind of Titans related. And I cannot get over this. We'll do this next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
But guys, also, I'm going to shift gears here. I do have some breaking news right now to report on the show. That's what we do. and it involves another Super Bowl MVP, and that is Aaron Rodgers. And guys, I've learned that Aaron Rodgers flew back to New Jersey this week to meet with the Jets about his future. Met with the team head coach and the GM, only to be told that they want to move on from him. Now, the thing is, what does Aaron want his player or not? What happens? Did they trade him? Do they cut him? Whatever it is. But the fact that Aaron actually used his own plane to fly there to find out what the decision probably means that Aaron still wants to play another year, just not going to be for the Jets. How about that?
Well, how about flying back and having your girlfriend say we break it up?
But I would tell you this, it's better to do it now, but it's better to do it now than to do it later, because now Aaron Rodgers has the chance to go out and find another team, and the Jets have the chance to let everybody know we're going in a different direction.
There you go. That was the news on Super Bowl Sunday. Aaron out in New York. So, not that, again, I'm staying up at night worried about what the Jets are going to do, and I've said this with Aaron. Add him to the list. Add Aaron Rodgers to the list, the discussion of who could be the next quarterback for the Titans. I'm not ready to poo-poo it. Now, I saw the Rossini report that the Jets asked Aaron to show up to OTAs and to stop doing McAfee, and I don't know if Aaron said no or yes to that, which is a very important element as to whether or not I would consider Aaron to be the quarterback of the Titans. But I have a question with all of this, with the Aaron Rodgers Jets mess. I have a question that I think I'm kind of struggling to figure out. And that is, who's the Jets quarterback going to be next year? You know, I've been kind of putting together the quarterback carousel because it is one of my favorite Friday topics during the offseason. Ian, you remember the old quarterback carousel?
Oh, yeah.
And so I just, I like right now, I'm filling out like who has quarterbacks and who doesn't. And it's amazing how many teams actually do have quarterbacks, even though some of these I wrote their names and I'm like, I mean, I'm not sure I like Tua, but Tua's their guy, So, for instance, the teams that do not have quarterbacks on the carousel: Tennessee, Cleveland, the Giants, the Raiders, the Jets, Pittsburgh, and Minnesota. Everybody else has a quarterback. Again, I don't love Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence, but they have a quarterback. He's their guy. So who's the Jets quarterback going to be? Because there's only a handful of guys out there. And there's only supposedly 2 guys that you can draft to play quarterback. And all the guys at the Super Bowl told us, yeah, they're probably not ready right away anyway. So if it's not Rodgers, if Aaron Glenn can get there and the owner, and I think Aaron taking a shot at the owner's kid, which was probably a well-warranted shot, but it's still something he can't do, probably wasn't a good idea. But again, Aaron Glenn just took this job. And everybody loves him because he used to play for the Jets and he's a leader of men and all this stuff. Just like they love Vrabel in New England. Wait till they draft a guard with the 4th overall pick who can't play tackle, and then we'll see how much they love him. But if you get to New York and you don't win, that honeymoon doesn't last very long. So who's their quarterback going to be? And the Jets are kind of in this odd spot where the owner demands that you win right away, and you don't have the number 1 pick. And even some of the quarterbacks on the carousel, like they can't sign Sam Darnold, can they? They've already tried that. Been there, done that. Can't have him. They can't sign Daniel Jones. I mean, Rich Gannon was on our show last week at the Super Bowl, and Rich was saying, like, Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones are the 2 guys in free agency I like. He said, I don't like Mac Jones. I don't like Justin Fields. I don't like. So Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones, the 2 guys Rich Gannon likes. You can't put them with the Jets, right? Like, Ian, isn't Daniel Jones, that's a no-go for the Jets because he just got dumped in New York.
I don't think, like imagine the back pages if the Giants went with Darnold or the Jets went with Daniel Jones and all the.
Can't do it.
I mean, that would be a disaster.
Remember how bad it got when they benched Eli for Geno Smith? And it was like, Geno Smith? We know Geno Smith. So it can't be those 2 guys. And they pick 7th. They don't pick 1st. They don't pick 2nd. So who's going to be the quarterback of the Jets? Like, who's out there? Can't be Aaron. Don't want him. Can't be Darnold. You've already dumped him.
What's going on
Can't
with the
be Daniel
Steelers guys?
Jones with Fields and Russell?
Yeah. Could they?
I mean, maybe.
Could they be a fit? I don't know.
But again, Russell wants to go back to the Steelers.
Do they want him
Fields
back?
wants to go somewhere he can play. I mean, is Fields really the answer?
I don't think so, but
Kirk Cousins? I think I saw on TV today that there was chatter about Kirk Cousins. That'll work out well. One old pawpaw with a bad Achilles, switch him out for another old pawpaw with a bad Achilles. Only the old pawpaw that you're switching for just got benched and sucks, but he's not as much of a distraction as the other old pawpaw.
it'd definitely be a complete flip of personalities.
Not that I care about what the Jets do, and not that I'm interested in the rationality when it comes to the Jets or expect rational thinking from the New York Jets. But with all this Aaron Rodgers talk, and Aaron is definitely on the list, with all of this Aaron Rodgers talk, I keep circling back to who's their quarterback going to be? Jameis Winston? I don't know. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program, 615-737-1025. So here's my list, because I have decided to rank the choices as far as quarterback is concerned for the Titans. The list, which includes every possibility and where Aaron Rodgers fits on the list, because I said Aaron Rodgers belongs on the list. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Gate Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So one thing that I absolutely detest, even though it should be something I love, is coaching search radio. You're probably like, wait a minute, coaching search radio? What is that like a channel? You go to the coaching search? No. Coaching search radio. The University of Tennessee fires their football coach, and they're looking for a new coach. And if you remember in 2017, it was like a 7-week thing trying to find the next coach. And every single day it was, let's go to Scott, who's up. What about Les Miles, Jared? What about Kevin Sumlin, Jared? What about, every day it was like, oh, this guy calls it. Here's who he thinks it should be. Coaching search radio. I hate it. The calls are so non-discussive. It's always just, what about Ed Orgeron, Jared? It's like, oh, okay. And I kind of feel like quarterback search radio is kind of similar. Where, again, it's not, hey, this is why I'm interested in this guy, and this would make sense. It's just like, what about Kirk Cousins, Jared? What about Derek Carr, Jared? What about, and it's like, okay, everybody's got a solution and everybody's got a, so here's what I've done. I have taken the available quarterbacks and I have put them in a list. And some of these guys I'm not interested in. You may be, I'm not. But for instance, here's who I have as available. And I listed this by who I think is probably the best, not who I think is the best, but who probably has the best collection of recent success and overall success and everything else. Sam Darnold 1, Aaron Rodgers 2, Kirk Cousins 3, Russell Wilson 4, Justin Fields 5, Daniel Jones 6, Mac Jones 7, Tyrod Taylor 8. Ian, did I leave anybody out off the top of your head?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and if you want to throw Jackson Dart in there, they're also, you can put them on the list too. Guys like Derek Carr are not on the list because Derek Carr is not available. Derek Carr will be the quarterback of the Saints next year because if Derek Carr is not the quarterback of the Saints next year, who's their quarterback going to be? And I can promise you Kellen Moore did not go there to lose every game in the first year because we don't have a quarterback. Matthew Stafford, not available. In my opinion, this is a standoff between Stafford and the Rams. Stafford's due $26 million this year, and the Rams don't want to pay him. And Stafford knows the going rate at quarterback is $55 million, and he's as good as the guy's getting $55 million, so he wants a pay raise. That's what that's about. Although I did talk to somebody at the Super Bowl, Ian, about Stafford, and I said, what's the deal with this? And you want to know what I was told?
What's that?
I was told that Matthew isn't the main Stafford who's driving the get what you deserved, you're getting disrespected angle of that family.
Interesting.
Does that shock you based off what little you know about all this?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's not unheard of in quarterback and sports lore world kind of stuff.
It doesn't surprise me. But he's not on the list because, again, he's the Rams quarterback. And if Stafford's not, who's going to be the Rams quarterback? So, again, the teams that don't have quarterbacks, Tennessee, Cleveland, the Giants, the Raiders, the Jets, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and I should, by the way, I'm going to throw Gardner Minshew on here, even though he's technically...
You're counting Minnesota without the quarterback, even with McCarthy there?
Yes, because their question on the carousel is, do you take Darnold back or do you go with McCarthy?
Okay.
Maybe I could put JJ in, but maybe in a different color. I like to color coordinate my stuff.
Got to tier it.
So here's my list of options for the Titans. This is what I would consider. This is, again, if I was Mike Borgonzi or if I was a former general manager who was in the room like Dave Ziegler and Reggie McKenzie and Chad Brinker and whatever, here's what I would be entertaining. And we start at the very top.
Number 1.
Sam Darnold. Boy, surprise, surprise on this program. My top choice is Sam Darnold at 4 years and $164 million. That is $41 million a season. $80 million guaranteed, which means I'm guaranteeing the first 2 years. Now, what that also means is the third year will become guaranteed on the third day of the second league year, which means I'm really guaranteeing 3 years. And the only way that I'm not guaranteeing 3 years is if I'm paying Sam Darnold not to work in year 2, the way the Broncos were paying Russell Wilson not to work this year. That's my top choice. Sam Darnold is 28 years old, or at least he will be 28 years old. He is 27 years old right now. He is 28 years old. He is not injured. He showed he is a capable quarterback, winning 14 games this year. And before you tell me, well, that's because they had Kevin O'Connell, then go get a good coach if you think your coach sucks that bad. Like, again, well, they had Kevin O'Connell. They had Justin Jefferson. Well, you can pick Travis Hunter. So, Sam Darnold, to me, when I hear Mike Borgonzi talk about solidifying the quarterback position, that is what Sam Darnold does. You know he can start in the league. You know he can do well because he did well last year. He did well in 2022 with the Panthers. With the same team Baker went 1-5 with, he went 4-2. Had a higher QBR than Aaron Rodgers. Again, I look at Sam Darnold as kind of a Tannehill. We know he's got the talent. He was taken high in the first round because of it. But all the kind of learning steps along the way, somebody else has had to pay for that. The Jets and the Panthers and everything else. I'm getting a ready-made quarterback. Again, not a franchise guy, not Josh Allen, but I'm getting a ready-made guy right there, 4 years, 164, 80 guaranteed, which is really more like 100 guaranteed. That's what I would do for Sam Darnold. He's number 1.
Number 2.
A true bridge quarterback. Darnold is not a bridge quarterback. You give a guy 4 years and 164, that's not a bridge contract. That's a starter's contract. Daniel Jones, 1 year, $10 million. Rich Gannon on the show last week, very, very high, talking about Daniel Jones, basically saying the Giants are a total mess. It's not his fault. When Saquon was healthy, Daniel Jones did well. Daniel Jones doesn't suck, which is something that, again, I wouldn't push my chips in the way I did for Sam Darnold. I wouldn't do that for Daniel Jones. But I do remember when Daniel Jones came in here at the beginning of the 2022 season and walking out of the stadium thinking, man, Daniel Jones is tough. I didn't think he was very good, but I did think he was tough. Thought he was mobile. Thought he could make the throws he needed to make. I think Daniel Jones is serviceable. 1 year, $10 million is a total bridge contract. You can start Daniel Jones at quarterback if you don't take a quarterback. You can sit a quarterback with Daniel Jones if you do take a quarterback. Or you can tell Daniel Jones at 1 year, $10 million after you draft Cam Ward with the number 1 pick, Daniel, sit on the bench. But that would be my number 2 option.
Number 3.
Boy, not a lot of people like this, but I think there's something there. Mac Jones, 1 year, $6 million. You know, the Eagles have made me think about this a lot because the Eagles team is loaded with guys who were good in the SEC. Devontae Smith, good in the SEC. A.J. Brown, good in the SEC. Landon Dickerson, good in the SEC. Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, all good in the SEC. Mac Jones was good in the SEC. Mac Jones, first year in New England, 10-7, made the playoffs. They thought he was the next Brady. He threw for 300 plus on you. And then what happened? Bill Belichick, who was in the midst of the I'm Smarter Than Everybody tour, because he was insecure about the fact that Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl, decided, my guys, my team, my coaches, my way, and hired Matt Patricia to be the offensive coordinator. It's hilarious. I heard Tony Maserati in Boston and Joe say the same thing almost hours apart one day, where they both said, I can't believe Belichick brought in Matt Patricia to be the OC. And when you really think about it, it is pretty amazing that Belichick did that. But again, he did do that. And I think that set Mac Jones back. I saw Mac Jones play twice against the Titans this year. Mac Jones won both games. Mac Jones has size. He can make the throws. And I just think that there's a little something there. 1 year, $6 million. Maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't mind it. That again is a true bridge contract.
Number 4.
Aaron Rodgers, 2 years, $50 million. We're guaranteeing the first at $25 million. Aaron has to take a pay cut to play for the Titans. Aaron has to show up for OTAs. The McAfee stuff we can discuss. But I do think there's a little something there with Aaron. With Aaron Rodgers, it kind of strikes me as what Russell Wilson was with the Steelers this year, which is good. You won some games. Like, that was nice. You made the playoffs. You had no chance to win in the playoffs. But where does that leave you afterwards? And the answer is nowhere. So with Aaron, there probably has to be a plan behind Aaron as to what the long-term success or whatever is going to be. Succession is going to be. But I'm sure Aaron thinks he can play, has a couple of years left in him. So give him a 2-year contract, guarantee the first year at $25 million, the second year, $25 million. You're grossly underpaying your traditional quarterback. And maybe it was the Jets. And maybe Aaron still has some game. So Aaron Rodgers, 2 years, $50 million, $25 guaranteed. I'd still rather do the 1 year with Daniel Jones, the 1 year with Mac Jones, and the 4 years with Sam Darnold before we get to Aaron, but put him on the list.
Number 5.
Cam Ward with the number 1 pick. I just don't believe in taking a quarterback number 1 overall that doesn't project to be a franchise quarterback. But Jared, you don't have a quarterback and you have to take a quarterback. Is maybe logic we could discuss if I had the 11th pick. But it's not the 11th pick, it's the first pick. I'll never forget when Cleveland took Baker Mayfield at 1 and Denzel Ward at 4 in the 2018 draft. The next day, Floyd said to me, when you've got the first pick in the draft and the 4th pick in the draft, the number 1 thing you cannot do is walk out of that draft without the best offensive player or the best defensive player. And at that point, in his opinion, Cleveland didn't take either. So, yeah, they needed a quarterback, and they took a quarterback, and that's great. But they didn't get the best offensive player, and they didn't get the best defensive player. I cannot take the 12th best player or the 17th best player in a draft simply because I need a quarterback. Now, if you wanted me to trade down and Cam Ward was still there, which I don't think he's going to be, if that was the case, fine. But I really don't want to pass on Carter or Hunter in order to take a quarterback who, again, when he's going to have to go toe-to-toe with Mahomes, probably doesn't have the talent to do it. So that's my list. Darnold at 4 years, $164, $80 million guaranteed. Daniel Jones at 1 year, $10 million. Matt Jones at 1 year, $6 million. Aaron at 2 years, $50 million, first year guaranteed. And then Cam Ward at number 1. That's my list. I'm not interested in Justin Fields. I'm not interested in Jameis Winston. I'm not interested in Shedeur Sanders. I'm not interested in Kirk Cousins. And I'm not interested in Jackson Dart. That's my list. 615-737-1025. Now, there is one player that I've been thinking about a lot as far as all this is concerned. I need to watch some tape on it, need to do some more discussion about it. But there's something about the Eagles that has really got me thinking about this one guy. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Trevor, if I gave you the option of I'm going to take Abdul Carter, but I'll take Will Howard in the second round, or I'll take Cam Ward and take another player in the second round, like a pass rusher or an offensive lineman in the second round, with that pick, which one would you say, no, that I'd rather you have Carter and Howard or Ward and somebody else?
I'd rather have Carter and Howard. And I would just not take Ward with that number one pick. I just wouldn't do it. Now, the Titans may see it differently than I do. And maybe Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders will come into the league and be Jaden Daniels. That's possible that could happen. But based on what I've seen from Cam Ward, it's another one of those 50-50 coin flips where I don't think that Abdul Carter is a 50-50 coin flip. I think he's going to be, at worst, a good, solid playmaking pass rusher for you, and he might end up being elite like the Cowboys' Micah Parsons. So I would rather take the sure thing, the game breaker, the game wrecker at a premium position with the number one pick, and then go with whatever else I'm going to go with later in the draft. And the thing is, there's going to be some pretty good players available high in the second round when the Titans can roll around again if they don't trade back up into the first round. So they will have a good chance to get good production with the second round pick. I would take the elite playmaker with the first pick.
That was Trevor on the program yesterday, and I just threw Will Howard out there. And I just said, okay, Will Howard in the second round. The second round's probably early in the second round, probably a little too rich for Will Howard. I have it pulled up in front of me. ESPN has Will Howard ranked right now as the 7th best quarterback with an overall rank of 109. According to ESPN.com, I don't know where they get their rankings from. Shedeur Sanders is number 1 at 17 overall. Cam Ward, number 2 at 18. Jackson Dart is 3. Let's see where he ranks overall. 36. Quinn Ewers is 4. Jalen Milroe 5. Kyle McCord 6. Will Howard 7. But there is something the Eagles have done that has really got me thinking. And it's got me thinking about Will Howard in particular. And that is, when I look at the Eagles team, and this is not a rule of how they draft, but this is a philosophy clearly. They get the best players from college football. That's why half their team is from Georgia and Alabama, because the best teams are traditionally Georgia and Alabama. And every team in the NFL, I'm sure, has some Alabama players on it. But doesn't it feel like the Eagles have just a bunch of SEC players, good SEC players who you remember playing in college? And that's what takes me to Will Howard. The Eagles drafted Jaylen Hurts in the second round when most people thought Jaylen Hurts was probably like a 3rd or 4th round pick. Yeah, he had done some nice things in Oklahoma, but everybody remembered Jaylen Hurts as the athletic quarterback from Bama who couldn't throw the ball well enough to stay in the national championship game. And so when I'm thinking about how to build a quarterback and how to build a team and how to, again, doing things the Eagles way, not that everything I do would be the Eagles way, but I'm thinking about these guys in college that were just freaking studs. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, guys that, but no, they were awesome in college. Ladd McConkey went in the second round. Ladd McConkey is a bad boy and was a bad boy at Georgia and is a bad boy for the Chargers. Which, again, brings me back to Will Howard. I keep thinking about all these really good players in college. I remember last year. Ian, do you remember when Robbie and Joe laughed at me because I said that I thought Malik Neighbors was better than Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Did they laugh at you?
Oh, they were like Beavis and Butthead,
I do remember you mentioning that you liked Neighbors more than Harrison.
I like that. I watch Ohio State play because Ohio State always plays. And Harrison's good, but I never saw Harrison was like, wow. I did feel that way watching Malik Neighbors play. And so that's why, look at the NFL. What did Marvin Harrison Jr. do last year? Meanwhile, Malik Neighbors, wow. I keep going back to just these freaking studs at these good schools that every time you watch their game, it's like, man, they never seem to stop talking about this guy on TV. Jalen Carter. That guy, I mean, all they ever do is talk about him. So I'm kind of looking at some of these guys, and yes, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, they were great college players at big program. Well, Colorado, whatever, but they were great college players. So put them in there. But what about guys like Emeka Ibuka? That guy caught every meaningful pass for Ohio State the last 2 years. What about Donovan Jackson, the guard at Ohio State that had to kick out the tackle and was awesome? Or Tyler Warren, the tight end at Penn State, or Jack Sawyer, the inside backer. Cam Skattebo, the running back at Arizona State. I don't know where these mock drafts have Cam Skattebo going, but could you imagine kind of a 1-2 punch of Tony Pollard and Cam Skattebo? I'm not saying every good college player is going to be a good pro. Tim Tebow was not a good pro. But for the most part, the guys that play the best at the best schools usually go to the NFL and play the best because they are the best. That's why they are the best. This isn't college basketball where you can be a great 25-year-old at 6'8" in the post and then go to the NBA and never be heard from again. Because in the NBA, they're drafting guys at 19 years old. They're not drafting anybody in the NFL at 19 years old. They're drafting guys in the NBA at 18 years old. They're drafting guys from Slovenia into the NBA. Not the same here. Hockey, I mean, again, they're drafting like 14-year-olds in hockey, it feels like. Baseball, they sign guys in Venezuela who are again, they say they're 16, we'll see. Which, again, brings you back to Will Howard. And one of my regrets at the Super Bowl, having all these draft gurus on and having all these people around the league and talking to them, is I didn't ask enough about Will Howard. Now, Will Howard would not be a guy that I'd want to bring in and say, okay, Will Howard, you're QB1 of the Titans. But Will Howard is the kind of guy who I could see myself, if I trade back out of number 1, or maybe if I trade back out of 35, again, I pick up a pick here, and I draft Will Howard out of Ohio State with a plan, which is you're going to be the third string quarterback of this team this year. Let's say I sign Aaron Rodgers, since that's the one we're talking about today. Aaron Rodgers 1, sign a backup, Brandon Allen. I guess that would make the most sense. He was the backup in San Fran last year, but he was the backup in Cincinnati when they went to the Super Bowl. Brandon Allen, number 2, Will Howard 3. And I make sure everybody knows Will Howard is the third string quarterback. And Will Howard will play a majority of the preseason. And Will Howard will get a bunch of reps in. And again, we don't have to focus on developing Aaron. We don't have to focus on developing Daniel Jones. We don't have to focus on developing that guy. But we'll focus on Howard. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We drafted him in the 3rd round. We drafted him in the 4th round. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Well, let's see. Because again, just like these guys from the Eagles, they're winners from big colleges. Will Howard, winner, big college, played great in the playoffs. Just something to keep in mind as I think about the Eagles and what they did. And that's just one name that kind of pops into my head. People ask me about Tyler Shuck, the quarterback at Louisville, and they're like, he looked great in the Senior Bowl. What about Tyler Shuck? And I'm like, I think Tyler Shuck is an NFL backup. But I don't think he's an NFL starter. And I never saw out of Tyler Shuck at Louisville, who I really like, by the way, thought he was a good quarterback for us. I never saw what I saw out of Will Howard in the playoffs. So keep that in mind. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. Boy, I tell you, the midday show's mad at me, Ian.
What happened
Probably
this time?
for my smoker of the Saros take yesterday about how I'd trade him, get out of that contract now before worst comes to worse. But coming up next, I think my real issue is kind of the bigger picture. I'll explain. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
So over his past 3 starts, he's won 2 of them. He has a goals against average of 4.4 and a save percentage of 857. That's bad. There's no way around it. Would you like to know how many goals the Predators have scored over those 3 starts when he's been on the ice? 15. A 5.08 goals for per appearance, basically goal support when he's on the ice. 5.08. He's allowed 4.4. The Predators have scored 5.08. So he's been bailed out because the Predators have scored more goals than he's allowed, and he's allowed a lot of goals over these past 3 starts. By comparison, Juuse Saros over his past 5 starts, he hasn't won any of them, if I'm not mistaken. Guess how many goals, Willie Donick, that the Predators have scored over Juuse Saros' past 5 starts when he's been on the ice?
I've been saying it. It's not just the last 5 games. The
I
whole
know,
year he
but
has the
I'm just
lowest.
using this
he has the
sample.
lowest goal support in the league. The
I'm just
lowest goal support in the league. So how many in the last 5?
So he's 0-5
9,
in his past 5 starts.
9
The
or
Predators
10.
have scored 7 goals
Yeah.
when he's been on the ice over those past 5 starts.
Yeah. You tell me how you're supposed to win.
Yeah.
There you go. There's the midday show making excuses for Juuse Saros. So yesterday on the program, I used the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles went all in on Carson Wentz. It's almost like we totally forget about that, but they went all in on Carson Wentz. They gave him a $128 million extension. They used 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, and a fourth-round pick to draft Wentz, and they gave him a $128 million extension. They ended up paying Carson Wentz $79 million in cash to be their quarterback. And then when they realized we got to get out, they got out. For the Nashville Predators, the time to make the decision to get out was last June. They didn't make it. But they have a tiny little window right now. Yes, they've traded the other goalie. Yes, they've given Saros the extension, and it would look bad to trade Saros now. But I think they need to get rid of him. I think they need to move on. I think they need to recognize what reality is. And so the midday show, of course, they brought it up. And, of course, Willie got back. You could hear Willie right there in that cut as Adam was cherry-picking the last 3 games that Eustace Annunen has played. And you hear Willie being like, I've said this for all year. He hasn't got the run support he needs. So let me just say this. Here's my problem with Juuse Saros. And here's my problem with the Predators. And here's why I'm looking at this trade deadline period right now, and I'm like, they're never going to do it, but they should. My problem is, I think everybody over at Bridgestone Arena who works for the Predators, they overvalue what Juuse Saros is. And they can't see it any other way. It's amazing. Juuse Saros will have a terrible game. And the analytics, the money puck stats will say, yeah, he allowed 2.99 goals above expected, which means he gave up 3 extra goals in that game. And you'll hear Willie or Chris Mason or somebody say, well, but the defense wasn't very good. We have Barry Trotz on the show. Saros is stinking it up. We say, what's the deal? Oh, no, it's the players in front of him, Jared. It's not Juuse Saros. And it's like they gave him a contract that basically said, Juuse Saros, we believe he's been the starting goalie for 5 years. And at the end of this season, in which they will not make the playoffs, he will have never won a playoff series. Not one. So how's that guy supposed to get me to the promised land? Now, what I said was, I'd get rid of him and I'd play the Juuse Annunen kid. Is he any good? I don't know. He seems to be just as good as Saros. When he gets in there, he gives up the same amount of goals and has the same save percentage, but at a fraction of the price. And now they've taken this into like, Jared says Juuse Annunen is better than Saros. That's not what I mean. But again, my problem with Saros is the way that everybody over there treats him like a sacred cow. And I've talked about this in the NFL with, I think, two of the more respectable franchises, the Packers and the Steelers. And they look at their brands and they say, our brand in Green Bay is we go from one quarterback to the next. We went from Brett to Aaron. Now we went from Aaron to Jordan. And it's like, hey, Jordan Love showed us a couple of good games. Here's $55 million a year. You want to show us a little bit more? Nope, we're good. We had Tony Khan on, who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, after they signed Trevor Lawrence to his contract extension. Tony was like, we think we have the best quarterback in the NFL. Again, you don't think they have Joe Burrow. I don't think they have Joe Burrow, but they think they have Joe Burrow. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin, don't you think it's a little stale? Don't you think it's time to move on? Don't you think but again, their brand is we don't fire coaches. And what's happened in Predator Land is that everybody over there at Bridgestone Arena, they think they're the Green Bay Packers, and they think they're going from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. We had Pekka Rinne, who was the man, and now we've gone to Juuse Saros, who is the man. But Saros hasn't done anything to prove that he's the man. What did Branch Rickey say? I can finish in last place with you or without you. I don't need to pay you extra. And yet, anytime there's some random stat Willie pulls off of some website out of his ass, it's, see, Saros isn't the big deal. But then when it comes to winning and losing, don't talk about that. When it comes to save percentage, don't talk about that. When it comes to their analytics, they love these things, right? Their numbers, the GS, the goals saved above expected, which I used on Saturday. Now Willie's like, don't talk about that. Somebody help me out here. What's the underlying metric that says that Juuse Saros is so good that they absolutely have to give him $8 million against the cap every year for the next 8 years, and they have to give him a no move so they can't trade him? What fact or statistical data or evidence or what do you have that tells me that he's this good? Because I haven't seen it. And what happens is every time he loses more, they dig in deeper.
Well, he was
and
ranked
I
in the
actually
top.
think that the people at Bridgestone Arena, Ian, I'm sorry, but I'm on
That's
a
okay.
rant.
Yeah.
I think the people at Bridgestone Arena actually believe this stuff. Like, I think Barry Trotz, if we strapped him to a lie detector test and we said, Barry, do you think that you can win the Stanley Cup with this guy because he's that good, that he would make a difference? Even though the teams that are winning the cup, they're doing it with Darcy Kemper, Barry would say yes, and the lie detector test would say that's the truth. Again, it's like how they gave Pekka a statue. I love Pekka. This is nothing against Pekka. I love him. He was a great goalie. He was fun to root for, and he's a good man. And I will say that again. I'm not going to bitch too much about Pekka having a statue because I like Pekka. But like the guys who get statues outside of buildings are Michael Jordan in Chicago, Magic Johnson and Kobe in Los Angeles. Pekka is not to the Predators what Michael Jordan was to the Bulls. But the people over there think that. So they're like, build him a statue. And the people over there think that Saros is just following in Rinne's footsteps, and he's not. He's not Pekka Rinne. Just because you say, well, we had Pekka for all those years and Pekka was really good, does not mean that Saros is Pekka, no matter how much you want to believe that. And it's like some sort of contagious virus that everybody's gotten that, again, I'm just sitting back watching and I'm like, all right, your team is absolutely god-awful. And none of this is his fault. I mean, even today, Willie was chucking Roman Josi under the bus in defense of Saros. They never chuck Roman Josi under the bus. That's how much they have to defend Saros. And again, it's not like I think there's like a corporate edict over there that says, you know, from an email account saying, you must defend Juuse Saros at all costs. I just think these people believe this stuff. And again, I'm asking, what is it you see that I don't? Because I see blown leads in the playoffs. I see a sub-9 save percentage in that god-awful play-in series against that crap Arizona team. So what do you see that I don't see? That's all I want to know. And not, well, it's the players in front of them. Well, if it's all about the players in front of them, then let's go take that $8 million and pay for better players in front of them and stick the Annunen kid that's doing exactly the same as he is, stick him in net. Like, I'm sorry. If you were to ask them, Juuse Saros, is he closer to Pecorine or is he closer to Kevin Lankinen? They would tell you he's closer to Pecorine. But every statistical fact would say he's closer to Kevin Lankinen. And I'm not convinced that Kevin Lankinen isn't better than Juuse Saros. And I said this to Vingan today. I said him this when it comes to the Justus Annunen kid. Because, I put out a tweet that Annunen's won more games this year, and Alex Doherty, who must have the Saros virus too, he was like, well, some of those wins came for Colorado. I'm like, okay, whatever. How about this? For the Predators this season, Justus Annunen has a save percentage of .904, and he has a goals against average of .923. Juuse Saros is .898 and .295. So again, not much of a difference. .904 versus .898. And .293 versus .295. Not much of a difference. I'll agree. So why do I have to give one of those guys $8 million and a full no move for the next 8 years? What's Annunen make? $1 million? Somebody help me. Somebody said, well, the Preds defense is terrible. Then let them be terrible for Annunen and spend the $8 million on someone to play defense. But nope, I guess I just don't see it. 615-737-1025. Ian, I do want to hear what you had to say, so we'll do that on the other side, and we'll take your phone. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. You know I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the same for you. Hiller has been in business since 1990, and they are family-owned and operated. And Jimmy Hiller was recently named amongst the most admired CEOs because of the way he truly cares for his team and his clients. I know this because I use Hiller at my home. Hiller takes care of the customer on every job, every time, every day, and they stand behind their work with 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free. Learn more at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds of Halls and Vandy. Hiller, call that fish truck today. Can I ask you about Saros?
Yeah.
Because I feel like the Predators tell us that he is Pecorine 2.0, like Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. And I just don't think he's that good. If he was that good, he would have won a playoff series by now, Steve.
So that's hard to believe, too. Look, I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of Predators this year. They sort of fell off the face of the
not
earth
on the radar.
in the standings. After
You mean the
that
Preds
first month.
Chicago tonight? You're not flying right out of here to go call that game?
Probably not, no. Battle for the top pick, I guess. I think he's considered a quality netminder. He's a top 10 goalie in the league, that kind of thing. But you should win a playoff series with that and surrounding talent. And, I can't tell you why it hasn't happened. I think he's a quality goalie. So you think he's good, but you're not willing to put him in the Rene. Rene's got a statue out front of the building.
That was a little over the top for my liking, but
You didn't think he deserved that?
I mean, I think he deserves to be in the team's Hall of Fame, which he is. A statue.
God, how many statues are out front? I don't know.
0.
Just one? Just his?
Yeah. Like, if we're going to put a statue, like, let's,
Who you gonna put in?
Mahomes deserves a statue.
God.
Pekka, is at the same level. That was Steve Levy on our show on Friday at the Super Bowl. He's like, I think he's a quality netminder. He's top 10, but I'm a little surprised he hadn't won a playoff series. It's like, yeah, he doesn't win in the playoffs. And now he's not winning in the regular season, but apparently none of it's his fault, according to everybody. Ian, in my rant right there about, again, the Saros virus, as I am dubbing it now.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I did cut you off. What was the point you were making?
Oh, no, that's okay. You were just, I don't know, saying something about what are you missing or what does everybody see? And really the only thing, the other GMs around the league, he's been a top 6 Vezina guy for the past 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some people who are willing to think he's a top 7 goalie in the league. Over, it's not like, oh, he was a Vezina top whatever last year. He was 6, 3, 4, 5 the past, handful of years. So there are a handful of people that think he's a top 10-ish 7 guy.
Then maybe one of them will trade for him. And then I can spend my $8 million somewhere else.
Yeah.
And put Juuse Annunen and Kevin Lankinen in net.
Yeah. I just think over the long haul, there's just a fear from GMs about having inconsistent goaltending, and like, if you find someone who can be proven to at least be good to solid and get hot enough, that could carry you in the playoffs if he gets hot. Because Saros has shown streaks where if he could play like that in the playoffs and everything goes right, he could carry you. He's played well.
But I'm not even getting into the playoffs.
No, I'm not this season, but I mean, he's played well enough where it could work. And so when I think GMs are just terrified of, not having somebody consistent back there that they can trust and what it's.
See, I am worried about the consistency. I am worried about the consistency of the next 8 years of him being just not good enough, which seems to be what he's been. Now, I will be watching the Four Nations Faceoff. I'm actually excited tonight.
Yeah, he's starting for Finland.
But apparently, Vingan told me that all of Finland's defensemen are hurt. So, like, Heiskanen's out. And
he is out.
Hakanpää's out. And so all of their top defensemen are out. So when he gives up 9 goals a game in the Four Nations Faceoff, he'll have the built-in excuse to blame the defense. So, but we'll be watching. And if he plays great, then maybe it changes my opinion and it is everybody else's fault. That I don't know. One texter says, Jared Stillman is a Finn-phobic racist, an anti-Finn hater. I got to be honest with you. I don't know who's from Finland and who's not. Other than I know that he is and I know Pekka is. Other than that, and I know that Miro Heiskanen is. And I like Miro Heiskanen. The Predators will never have him on their team, but I love him. But other than that, yeah, I don't know who's Finnish and who's not. For whatever that's worth. One texter says, you're doing the opposite with your quarterback rant on not wanting to win the deal. The Saros contract for a starting goalie is not insane given his percentage of the team cap. One bad year does not make it a career. He's got to be better next year, that's for sure. Again, I don't equate the goalie in hockey to the quarterback in the NFL. Like, the quarterback in the NFL is the entire team, and if you've got Will Levis, you have no shot to be good. But if I was equating this to the NFL, I would say that UC Saros is probably truly more like Geno Smith than he is like Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, those guys, Burrow. And everybody in Predator land has been telling me for the last 2 years that UC Saros is Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Burrow. And again, he's probably more like Geno Smith, more like Dak Prescott or Trevor Lawrence or one of those guys. By the way, did you see Dak came out and said that they're not that far off from the from beating the Eagles? It's like, Dak, come on, baby. One texter says, you used to think that Craig Smith stunk, and he still has the second most game-winning goals in Preds. Craig Smith sucks. Craig Smith sucks. Sucks. And I do not miss him at all. One texter says, who in their right mind trades for Saros at this point? A general manager who, like Ian said, is scared of inconsistent goaltending, who wants the cost certainty for the next 8 years. But the truth is, you probably have to attach a sweetener, which should tell you that he's not that good. One texter says, it struck me that Nashville might have the first pick in hockey and in the NFL. What a low point for Nashville sports. My girlfriend said to me when I told her like 2 weeks ago that the Predators had similar odds of making the playoffs as they did of getting the number 1 pick. And she looked at me and goes, so we're the worst in football and the worst in hockey? And I was like, yeah, pretty much. Jared versus Joe is next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. And we'll give something away here at some point. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. It's 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, back to our normal time for Jared versus Joe. Not that we didn't do this at the normal time last week, but I just felt so discombobulated with everything going on last week. But Caroline Fenton is here with us. Hello, Caroline. How are you?
Hello. How we doing?
I'm outstanding. I'm going to start signing my name, by the way, my last name with a money sign. S, money sign, Tillman.
Well, I can't believe you've gone 35 years of your life without doing that. How is anyone supposed to know that you are money motivated?
So we told the story that on the air of the Shedeur Sanders autograph.
Yeah,
and
that's my favorite story from the week.
And I've also told the story of the Gatorade gift bag that Shedeur Sanders was kind enough to give you. It says he wears himself.
Nothing in there that I wouldn't wear myself. And I was like, Shedeur, I think that might be a lie, but thank you nonetheless.
With that, Joe Rexroad is with us for Jared versus Joe. Joe, not bad on Mike, won with PK the first couple days this week.
Okay. I don't know if I should feel good or bad about you saying that. But thanks.
It also feels like you may have given PK part of a Xanax before. He hasn't been all worked up this week, so I don't know what's wrong with him in that regard, but it's time for Jared versus Joe.
Big discussions.
What's the deal with this quad?
Bigger arguments.
I was right. I had my finger on the pulse of this team. It's so dumb.
It's time.
Oh, it was the cap. Cap.
For Jared versus Joe.
For you, this is actually kind of well-reasoned.
Brought to you by First Horizon Bank. Big bank muscle. Small bank hustle. And by Pella Windows and Doors.
We make the rules around here now.
Now on Stillman and Company.
Let's get it on.
All right, Caroline, floor's yours.
All right, Jared, you go first this week. Titans have some options. Titans have some decisions facing them from now until the draft. So, of all of the quarterback options that you think are real and feasible for the Titans, rank those quarterback options.
Okay, I did this about an hour and a half ago or something like that. I have Sam Darnold at number 1, and that is not a bridge contract. That is a starter's contract for Sam Darnold. I have Daniel Jones, number 2, on a bridge deal. Mac Jones, number 3, $6 million. Aaron Rodgers, number 4, at 2 years and $50 million, 1 year guaranteed. And Cam Ward with the first pick at 5. I just can't. I just don't like the idea of taking the 19th best player with the first pick or the 30th best quarterback with the first pick. So I have Cam Ward with the first pick as the last choice on the list behind Aaron, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, and a starter's contract for Sam Darnold.
Okay, well, you can miss me with the Joneses, so I'm going to promise you neither of those guys are in my 5. I will agree on one, Sam Darnold. I will also, though, ask Jared just to clarify. You think Sam Darnold's a better quarterback than Jaylen Hurts?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, hold on.
If
I'm being totally
what an
honest,
abomination of a take.
If I'm being totally honest,
Abomination of a take.
I put together a list and I had them in the same tier, but I had Sam at 15 and I had Jaylen at 12, but they're in the same tier. Like, to me, Sam has more talent. Jaylen probably gets discombobulated.
Sam
less.
Darnold has more talent than Jaylen Hurts.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jaylen Hurts.
Yeah. Of course he does.
That's not
even a question. Oh, my God.
Not even a question.
Define talent.
Clear.
Define that, please.
The ability to throw the ball down the field. Again, I think they're roughly the same as far as like athleticism is concerned. You remember Sam Darnold ran a 4.85 at the combine when he was coming out.
Who cares?
Well, I mean, I'm just not saying because Sam Darnold's white, people are going to assume that he's not an athlete. He is an athlete. He is legitimately an athlete. He's got better arm talent.
This just gets better and better.
I mean, he's bigger. He's more talented. But I have I have Jaylen at 12, Baker at 13, Purdy at 14. I think we can agree that like Sam Darnold has more talent than Purdy.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Purdy at 14, Darnold at 15.
I just watched Jalen Hurts, play high level Super Bowl winning football.
You mean that interception he threw in the red zone when the game was still close?
That was the only mistake he made on Sunday.
It was the only mistake he had to make. He was spotted 14 points by his defense in the first half. Jalen made one good throw in the first half, and it was the ball on the sideline to Jahan Dotson. That was a good throw. And then the one he threw to Devontae at a halftime was beautiful. Other than that, anybody could have done that.
Yeah, anybody could have done it. All right. Well, anyway, I'll finish my top five. I'm going to go Rodgers second. Like I said, miss me with both of those Joneses all together. I'll go Rodgers. And look, it gets rough after that. I'm going to go Shedeur Sanders, then Cam Ward, and then I'll go Cousins fifth. That's how slim the pickings are, again, of realistic options.
Shedeur Sanders over Cam Ward?
Yeah, I'm sticking with that. I get I'm not surprised. I think Cam Ward will go first. I think Cam Ward has, I've said this many times. I think there's a higher floor with Shedeur. I think there's a higher ceiling with Cam Ward. I trust Shedeur Sanders and his accuracy more. But again, you get to 3 and 4 and you're already like, ew, not loving the possibilities.
I mean, now the big debate is Jackson Dart versus Shedeur Sanders for QB2 in the draft.
Is it?
I mean, I don't know enough about Jackson Dart to tell you one way or another. But again, I mean, here's why I would put the Joneses in there. First of all, Rich Gannon last week at the Super Bowl was just banging the table for Daniel Jones, which I was a little surprised by. And when Daniel Jones came in here in 2022, I remember walking out of the stadium thinking, Daniel Jones is tough. I last year was banging the table that Carolina was stupid and the Jets were stupid and Darnold was going to show everybody when he went to a good organization. Rich thinks that that's the case with Daniel Jones in New York, is that they're stupid and Daniel Jones can show them. So there's a little upside there. Mac Jones, 10-7 his first year before Belichick went on this whole I'm smarter than everybody else tour, and he made Matt Patricia the offensive coordinator, which like 2 weeks ago, Joe, you said you couldn't believe Belichick did that. And I agree with you. Like looking back on it,
yeah,
what was Belichick thinking? And so I do kind of highlight that. Mac Jones came in here and I thought played competent quarterback in the 2 games he played against the Titans. I think there's some talent with Mac. Like there's some upside there. Whereas with Aaron, even if Aaron kind of rekindles a little bit, like he's not going to be MVP Aaron, but even if he kind of rekindles a little bit of that Aaron Green Bay form, it's like Russell Wilson with the Steelers. Congratulations. You won 9 games. You made the playoffs. Now what? The Steelers are in the exact same spot they were last year. That's why I put the Joneses ahead of Aaron, because there is at least a little upside if they do well as opposed to Aaron.
Yeah, 2 things can be true. Matt Patricia, terrible choice, terrible offensive coordinator. Cannot believe Ohio State hired him, by the way. Also, Mac Jones, not good. And Daniel Jones is tough. He just can't pass footballs effectively. But, yeah, you can have those guys.
He passed it effectively enough to get the Giants into the playoffs and win a playoff game when Saquon Barkley was healthy.
Yeah. That was long ago, Jared.
And I would agree. Saquon Barkley does make the quarterbacks that he plays with better when he's healthy.
Yeah, just imagine if Sam Darnold had him. We'd be comparing Darnold and Brady if he had.
If
Saquon
Sam
Barkley.
Darnold did have Saquon Barkley with Justin Jefferson, I would tell you that they would be very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
Are you debating that? If Saquon Barkley was the running back of the Vikings, you don't think that team would be more dangerous than they were this year, which was a dangerous football team.
It's not like Aaron Jones was any sort of slouch.
No,
like him?
I mean, I agree. I think if you gave him LT in his prime too, and Deion in his prime, holy crap!
You're the one that scoffed at the idea of giving Sam Darnold Saquon Barkley.
I'm just saying. I mean, I think that if you gave him Barkley, he's probably basically on Tom Brady's level per your quarterback analysis.
I mean, I believe that Saquon Barkley is the Derrick Henry of that team, and Jalen Hurts is the Ryan Tannehill. And that if you were to put Saquon Barkley on the Vikings, then Saquon would be the Derrick Henry of that team, and Sam Darnold would be the Ryan Tannehill, and Justin Jefferson would be the A.J. Brown. And we all saw Ryan Tannehill, although Caroline wasn't here for this, but we all saw Ryan Tannehill have an elite season as a quarterback. And we know Ryan Tannehill is not an elite quarterback.
Okay,
Joe, would you like
what's
to
next?
poo-poo your own comments some more?
I have no. I mean, I think that your Darnold take stands alone in its brilliance. I mean, that's all. We don't need anything else. What's next?
Which offense?
Jalen Hurts also did get to a Super Bowl without Saquon. I know they didn't win the Super Bowl, but they got to a Super Bowl.
And he threw for 320 yards, and it wasn't his fault that that the game completely flipped on him. But
Jalen Hurts
Darnold
played a much better Super Bowl 2 years ago than he did in this Super Bowl.
Well, that's fine. I think he played the game of his career 2 years ago in the Super Bowl.
I know, and then a year later, he was in Tampa Bay and apparently couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
because everything's got to be right around
It
Jalen.
doesn't quite match up to Sam Darnold's big game.
A lot like Ryan Tannehill.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
When he had the coordinator and he had the receivers and he looked good. And when he doesn't, he scores 9 points and gets blown out in a playoff game in the wild card round against Tampa Bay. Just like Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, but Jalen Hurts didn't poop his pants on the biggest stage like Ryan Tannehill did.
I actually
like you could argue Sam Darnold did too. Let's not forget the last two games Sam Darnold played. I think that would
Sam
qualify.
Darnold absolutely pooped his pants.
Pooped his pants.
I don't think I don't think Jalen on Sunday was in any position where he could have truly pooped his pants. Like his defense was so dominant in that game that it's like the one play that I just cannot get over was Josh Sweat pushing Tooney into Mahomes and Mahomes throwing the ball right to Zach Bond right after Mahomes had thrown a pick six. Like at 10-0 with the Chiefs. Like the Chiefs are still in the game at 10-0. Mahomes throws the pick six. Now it's 17-0. Now, I don't know about you guys, but at that point at 17-0, I'm starting to think, okay, Kansas City might be in some trouble. At 10-0, again, I look at it like Mahomes is one play out of this game. And at 17-0, I'm like, okay, now the game's teetering. Then Mahomes throws the next interception, and it's like, okay, this game's over. Like at 24, game's over. Jalen didn't have to make a high-level play in that he only had to have one drive in the first half where they went down the field because their defense was so freaking dominant. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Brad Johnson won this exact same Super Bowl. And
But
Brad
Jalen
Johnson
Hurts
was
is
an
not
okay
Trent
quarterback.
Dilfer or Brad Johnson.
I think Brad Johnson's a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts.
Oh,
Brad Johnson was a good quarterback. What are you talking about?
To talk about Jalen Hurts as just some guy that just got lucky, like he's not Joe Flacco.
Brad Johnson won this exact
I mean, I think that that's exactly who he is.
I think that
I think he's Joe Flacco.
selling him
I think he's
so
Brad
short.
Johnson.
I don't think that Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback. I would never put him in the same category as Patrick Mahomes, although I do feel like that's a strange statement to say with considering the events of Sunday. But Jalen Hurts is much better than some guy that just got lucky.
I mean, Brad Johnson didn't get lucky. Brad Johnson threw for 30,000 yards in the NFL. But Brad Johnson was a quarterback on a team that had two really good receivers in Keyshawn Johnson and Keenan McCardell. And I mean, Joe, you remember how good those Tampa Bay defenses were.
Yep, I'd say Jalen Hurts is a little bit better player than him, but yeah.
And he had the coach in Gruden. That was the thing, was Gruden got there. And I mean, again, Brad Johnson was good. He was good, but he wasn't, superstar or anything like that. And Jalen Hurts is not a superstar. Again, Jalen's the 12th best quarterback in the league. That's good enough. but he's not great.
Okay, well,
He's
since
better
you bring
than
that
Sam
up,
Darnold. I'll go ahead and die on the he's better than Sam Darnold Hill. I'll feel good about
Well,
that.
I
But,
put
yeah.
Sam at 15
Go ahead,
and
Caroline.
Jaylen at 12. But again, they're in the same tier for me.
so if you talk about the quarterbacks that are better than Jalen Hurts, you say he's the 12th best quarterback. Who are the quarterbacks ahead of him? I'll ask Joe the same question.
Who's going first?
You go first since you're dying on this hill.
Okay. Mahomes 1, Allen 2, Burrow 3, Jackson 4, Daniels 5, Herbert 6, Stroud 7, Stafford 8, Prescott 9, Jared Goff 10, Jordan Love 11, Jalen Hurts 12.
Joe?
I mean, I don't. I'm in a car, so I can't. As I listen to Jared list those names off, I don't have any big quibbles with that.
Like, would you take Stafford or Jalen?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about, like, if I get healthy, best case scenario, Stafford, and we're talking short term, I'd take Stafford. I mean, I would take Jalen Hurts right now in their careers because he has a lot more career left.
Sure, but like,
yeah,
who's the better quarterback?
I take.
Today?
Yeah. No, I think that I think that's fine. But see, I don't. Again, I'd have to look at the list to make sure I'm not forgetting someone. I don't think I have Darnold at 15.
So
feel
I
like
have Hurts at
there's
12.
Probably some names that you're disrespecting there.
So I have Hurts at 12. I have Mayfield at 13, Purdy at 14, Darnold at 15, Trevor Lawrence at 16, Bo Nix at 17, Kyler at 18, and Tua at 19. And everybody else after that absolutely sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to I think all those names you named, I would put him after all those names.
You would put him after Kyler.
Yeah, absolutely.
You would put him after Trevor Lawrence.
Sam Darnold had a good year with an incredible situation, and I like him. Kyler Murray was good this year. Kyler Murray, we'll see where it goes. But yes.
You would put Trevor Lawrence ahead of Sam Darnold. You would put Bo Nix ahead of Sam Darnold.
I mean, I guess that one we could debate. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, yes.
You would put Tua ahead of Sam Darnold.
Dude, yes. Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, God. Tua's got the best situation in the league.
I know. Tua's got the best situation in the league. How do you figure?
Look at his receivers.
Of his coach. Well, when do they ever play? They never play.
He's the one who never plays.
How many games did Waddle play this year? 2 games?
Hey, Jalen Waddle played against Titans. Tua didn't, but Jalen Waddle did. Remember they kept smoking L'Jarius Sneed, but Snoop Huntley couldn't complete the pass?
That's right. L'Jarius Sneed played. I forgot about that.
Those were the days.
Joe puts Bo Nix ahead of Sam Darnold. More Jared versus Joe to continue next. Yeah, it is. Jared versus Joe continues next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
discussions.
What's the deal with this quad?
Bigger arguments.
I was right. I had my finger on the pulse of this team.
It's so dumb. It's time
Oh, it was the cap. Cap.
for Jared versus Joe.
For you, this is actually kind of well reasoned.
Brought to you by First Horizon Bank, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle, and by Pella Windows and Doors.
We make the rules around here now.
Now on Stillman and Company.
Let's get it on.
Jared versus Joe continues. First, though, be caller 5 at 615-737-1025. You win a family 4-pack of tickets to the Athletes Unlimited Professional Basketball Games at Nationals Municipal Auditorium, Saturday, February 15th. Tip-off at 5 o'clock. Stars playing include Alicia Clark, Sydney Colson, Lexi Brown, Jordan Hurston, Isabel Harrison, and more. Caroline, go.
All right, Joe, you go first. Let's talk some hockey. Because I keep hearing this idea from Jared, the Carson Wentz approach. Trading UC Saros now before the long-term contract kicks in. What is the Predators' best option moving forward with UC Saros?
How is that? I mean, for what? Who's taking that?
I mean, I think somebody out there would take a goalie at cost certainty for the next 8 years. And if not, then I'll attach something to it. I didn't think someone would trade a first-round pick for Carson Wentz, and Indy traded a first and a third. So make of that what you will.
Yeah, I have my doubts about. I mean, look, they're in a bad spot. The spot they're in is hoping that he regains his form. That this is a bad year. That everything that's gone wrong is more of an impact on him than the underlying numbers would suggest. That the fact that he's the kind of goalie who you would think really needs to be at peak athleticism to be at his best does not mean his 30s are going to be a steady decline. And look, I thought they should have traded. I thought that they needed to make the choice of Yaroslav Askarov, and who knows if he'll be good. But this is why, because I just wondered if Saros would be excellent for years to come and live up to that deal. So I don't think that this idea of trading him right now is realistic. I don't think you're going to get anything. And, I think you're stuck, but certainly you got to be concerned. It's very concerning. I also don't agree with everything, like the whole he should have won a playoff series that Jared always screams about. I mean, I think he has played well in the playoffs at times. He didn't play well in the bubble. He played great in the Carolina series. I mean, they were overmatched in that series, So I don't necessarily, he hasn't been on playoff winning caliber teams, but this year is very alarming.
So I would say that I would do whatever it takes to get rid of him. That, again, don't worry about what it would look like, and because that wasn't the question. Like, if I was Barry Trotz, I probably would be sitting there and praying like Joe is that, hey, UC Saros will return to form, and I won't look like a total fool when my team 3 years into this is stuck and I can't get out of it. But as far as what's in the best interest of the Predators, getting rid of UC Saros, I think, is the number one thing they could do. And I would do almost whatever it takes to make that happen. Like right now, I'd be shopping saying like, hey, like give me a third and we'll do it. But at some point, I would be willing to attach an asset to get rid of him. Because what I want in return is I want the money. I want to be unburdened of this contract. It was a terrible mistake, followed by the decision to trade Askarov, which is a bad mistake if you're going to end up trading Saros. Like it's all bad. But to admit it and move on. And that's what I think they have to do. And I agree with Joe. They're not going to do it. But just because they're not going to do it doesn't mean that they shouldn't do it. And I'm sorry. I have a hard time of understanding this thing when like they don't win and it's not his fault. Every time they don't win, it's not his fault. If it's not his fault, if he can't save bad play in front of him and carry the team to victory, then what is the point of paying him the $8 million and giving him the no movement clause to where I can't get rid of him if he is so important, but not important enough that he can't make up for others' mistakes?
Yeah, it's just what everybody says in hockey. I mean, no teammate or coach has ever blamed a goalie, and they never will. So, they'll never get a straight
I look at the
answer on
Vancouver series last year, and I look at what happened in game 1 where they allowed those back-to-back goals, in 20 seconds and blew the lead. And I look back to game 4 where they had the game at the end and they allowed the last 2 goals in the last minute or whatever it may be. Like they allowed those last 2 goals of the 6-on-5 to Vancouver and lost in overtime. Like that's not good enough. That's not good enough from a goalie that is so good that I can't get rid of him. And then the other thing that is kind of depressing is his stats last year, like compared to Kevin Lankinen, pretty similar. His stats this year to Justus Annunen, very similar. Like I think that Annanen's like a 9.0 or it's like a 904 save percentage. Saros is an 898, and the goals against it's 293 for Annunen with the Predators, 295 Saros with the Predators. Like it's the same. So I can get that from some Scarbini. Like, why am I paying you? And why does everybody have to treat you like a sacred cow? And I don't understand that. So I think, that is a huge shake up the room kind of trade. That is a huge hockey trade. If you kick the goalie out of the room and you say, okay, we're moving on, and that's what this organization needs, and we got to stop treating this guy like he's infallible, which our midday show does, and it's just they need to get out of this contract, and I would do whatever it takes basically in order to do it.
And you mentioned Barry Trotz. You want to talk about raising your hand and telling the rest of the league in the city of Nashville, I'm a total idiot, then let a peep of this come out about you thinking about trading Saros. I mean, this is why. I mean, you were.
Didn't Howie Roseman do that when they traded Carson Wentz?
Well, but again, like the problem is the difference in contracts in the NFL and the NHL, and this is why last year it was such a huge fork in the road. So, I mean, this is you when you made the choice to go with him, you made the choice, and the idea. Look, it's bad. It's bad right now. It's bad on every front with the Preds and certainly with him. But it is also less than a season. Like when you at that fork in the road, you make that choice. You have got to ride it out. You have to.
But would you be willing to admit, like, if Barry Trotz were to come to you and he were to say, Joe, I screwed up. Like I blew it. Would your advice to Barry be, hey, hold on to dear life and hope it works out for you? Or would you say, well, go do something about it?
Well, I guess you could look around, but you're also, do you have certainty right now that UC Saros is done? Do you have certainty that he's toast? What are you getting back? And also then what are you doing at goalie? Again, this is, we've been talking about the Preds with this surplus of goaltenders. They've had like 2, going back to when Saros first came up as Rene's backup a decade ago, right? They've had like 2 goalies basically the whole time, a prospect and a good goalie. Now all of a sudden you're going to do this, and then what is your answer? You're a bad team and you don't have a goalie.
I'll go sign Kevin Lankinen. Now he's in that. I just gave Kevin Lankinen $3 million, and he's the starting goalie, and I think he's probably just as good as Saros because the stats bear it out. When they were here, roughly the same. And now Lankinen in Vancouver, much better. And
but again,
exact
Jared,
same as Saros.
Right. So if this year's performance, this year's stats, that's what he is, well, then you're screwed. But he got paid based on previous performance, which was
he
excellent.
Got paid based upon this idea that he was Pekka Rinne 2.0, and it's 5 years, and he hasn't won a playoff series. He was hot trash in that bubble series. He blew games 1 and 4 last year in the Vancouver series. Like, I mean, at some point, he's got to win something, right?
He's objectively been a top 5 goaltender in the NHL multiple seasons. There is no question. And he should have won the Vezina on either 21 or 22. I was getting mixed up. He should have won it. So let's not pretend like he hasn't been elite.
Who did he lose the Vezina to when he should have won it? I don't even remember that.
Maybe Ian can remember. One of those 2 years,
it was Hellebuck, maybe, but
yeah, I thought he was the best goaltender in the league. Regardless, like objectively, he was elite. I mean, you can't. I understand the playoff series thing. You can't argue that he hasn't been elite in his career. He's been elite relative to other goalies in the NHL. Again, my worry is his game, his style, his body type. Is he ever going to get that back?
The Rangers guy got it. It's just Sturkin that year.
So
That
again,
was Igor.
I go back to this. Forget about what it would look like if they trade him and how stupid you would look if you did it. If Barry said, I think I screwed up, would you say, get out of it now while you can? Or would you say, suck it up and let's see?
I'd say, again, like I just said, sure, call somebody. Get laughed at by some guys. Go ahead. But again, like, I screwed up, and what I'd say is, Barry, how did you come to this decision, such a huge decision, and then how are you now so certain you're wrong? I mean, like, I wouldn't trust anything he said at this point.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of explaining to do when you build a team that's supposed to be good that is objectively horrendous. And this is part of that explaining, right? Like, that's the whole, like, hey, Ricky, you've got some explaining to do. Like, that's the explaining. Like, you got to explain. Caroline, what's next?
Let me just say, I told you so when I was fighting tooth and nail with Willie and D-Mace over this for months about not signing UC Saros to a long-term deal. I told you so. Okay, lastly.
You need to take it to them, by the way, with that, because Adam is a total pushover when it comes to the, Saros virus that they have over there.
Caroline and Nashville may be needing to make a call between the hours of 11 and 2. So heed that warning, Willie, because I'm coming. Okay, lastly, Jared. Vols lost last night to Kentucky. They've now been swept by Kentucky. Was last night's loss to Kentucky proof that Tennessee is not a contender?
Now, I am not the basketball Benjamin that one Joe Rex wrote is, so I have to, I can't tell you the whole rosters, and I'm not going to go down to the 12th man on the bench. But I got to say this. Outside of the Florida game 2 weeks ago, every time I've sat down to watch UT play a big game this year, they've lost. They lost to Vandy. They lost to Auburn. They lost to UK twice. I mean, I guess I saw them play Louisville in the opening game this year, and they did kick the crap out of them, but that was a new program, and I'm not even sure Louisville's all that good. But when I've sat down to watch UT play these big games against these good SEC teams, they lose. Now, again, they did beat Florida, and so I'll give them that. But, I mean, it's almost like they're the same team they were last year, put Lanier in for Connect, and Lanier's just not that much of a superstar as compared to Connect. I think Tennessee is a Sweet 16 caliber team, but probably not a title contender.
Yeah, I don't know if last night proves it. I mean, I think they're a better team than Kentucky. Kentucky has matched up with them really well, has played extremely well in those two games. I think Kentucky, which has a pretty bad defense, they just match up fine on that side of the ball with Tennessee. But that also, I think, speaks to Tennessee's limitations. And I generally agree with what Jared said, which is it is what they are. It's Ziegler, it's Meshack. They're different in the front court. And I do like Milicic. He's a good player. But basically it is Chaz Lanier, a catch-and-shoot guy, very good catch-and-shoot guy. But he's in the place of Connect, and he's not a guy you're going to ever give the ball to get out of the way. He's never going to get to the line, get to the rim. He makes jump shots. And so last night they missed, I think, their last 5 threes in a row after they had taken a 1-point lead. And that's just what they are. They're too dependent on that. They just don't have anyone you can throw the ball into in the post. Ziegler can get wherever he wants, but he has to get, 5 feet of separation so he doesn't get his shot blocked. So I don't think they're a title contender. I think this is a team that if they got a good draw, they could potentially get the first Final Four in school history. I don't put that. I think they're certainly good enough to be an Elite 8 team this year, but your title contender, you have to be better offensively than they are.
Caroline, who wins this week?
Just like the Super Bowl, it was over in the first half. Sam Darnold is more talented than Jaylen Hurts is a doozy. Joe wins.
I'm glad that is the reasoning for my defeat. And I can live with that. Thank you, too, as always, because we got to have a talk about Jaylen Hurts. We're going to do that next. The one thing that I was scared to death of happening has happened. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
Jaylen, you told us this week, as Brandon Graham's trying to give you a big hug here.
Yeah! Boy, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
Appreciate you. Let them know. Let them boys know, man. Tell them get off your back. Let's go.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask. You said after Super Bowl 57, you sat in the locker room and you thought to yourself, I'll be back. You got back, and now you're a champion. How does that feel?
You know, God is good. He's greater than all the highs and the lows. And I think personally myself, I've just been able to use every experience and learn from it. The good, the bad, all of it, using it as fuel to pursue my own greatness. And I think I couldn't do any of these things without the guys around me. You know, we got a special group this year. We were able to learn from the past.
There you go. That was Jaylen Hurts. We got to have a Jaylen Hurts discussion here for a second, if I may. I knew this was going to happen. When I saw Jaylen Hurts was the game's MVP, I thought, oh, no. And I got nothing against Jaylen Hurts. When I think of Jaylen Hurts, I think about the kid that came off the bench in the SEC championship game after Saban had benched him in the national title game the year before, came off the bench in the SEC title game when Tua got hurt and led Alabama to victory. I got a lot of respect for Jaylen Hurts. And Jaylen Hurts is great at what he does. But he's a game manager. He's a game manager. And I brought up Brad Johnson, and Caroline and Jared versus Joe just scoffed. Now, I mean this with all due respect, but Ian, do you think Caroline even remembers Brad Johnson?
I mean, maybe a little.
Caroline was born in 1997.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
Brad Johnson won the Super Bowl in 2002.
Right. So you'd have to do, a little bit of rewatching probably at some point.
So in that Super Bowl, Brad Johnson. Now, he didn't win MVP. Dexter Jackson won MVP, a defensive player. And Dwight Smith, a safety, had 2 pick sixes in the game. But in that game, Brad Johnson completed 18 passes for 215. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Jaylen Hurts in this Super Bowl completed 17 passes. Again, Brad Johnson completed 18. Jaylen completed 17. For 221. Johnson threw for 215. He threw for 221, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Now, that Tampa Bay defense in 2002 is one of the best defenses I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, I mean, that defense was legit. And so was this Eagles, but maybe not to the tune of that Tampa team. But that Tampa team was stacked on defense. 2 great receivers, McCardell and Keyshawn Johnson. They had a running game with Michael Pittman and Mike Allstott. And all Brad Johnson had to do, who was a career mid-starter, was manage the game. That's what Jaylen does. But instead, everybody's gotten on TV this week and been preachy and saying, you people doubted Jaylen Hurts. No, we doubt that Jaylen Hurts can carry his team the way we asked Josh Allen to carry his team. If A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith got pissed off and left the way Stephon Diggs did, Jaylen would be screwed. Josh goes out and wins league MVP. Joe Burrow's got no defense. His receivers are never healthy. And yet we are, but Joe Burrow don't win enough. Jaylen is in the perfect spot, and he's a great game manager. That's why Saban liked him at Alabama. He could trust him. But again, that's Brad Johnson. That's Brad Johnson. Brad Johnson was not bad. Brad Johnson had a good career. Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl. That's Brad Johnson, not Patrick Mahomes. What Jaylen Hurts is going through is what Joe Flacco went through after he won his Super Bowl. But it's not a representation of who they are. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, tonight the Four Nations Faceoff kicks off, which I'm very excited for. That's going to be, Canada versus Sweden tonight, Ian? Is that right?
Yep.
Canada versus Sweden tonight on TNT. Obviously, in the Stillman Hislop household, we are very, very excited for that. And we're very, very excited for Jordan Bennington getting the start. We're big Jordan Bennington fans apparently over here. I got to tell you, I think this thing's got promise. If the players play hard, the All-Star game never means anything because the players in the NHL and, when they used to have an All-Star game in football and in basketball, they don't play any defense. They just glide up and down the ice and just, pass it. And that's how Philip Forsberg scores 13 goals in an All-Star game. If these guys take this seriously, the way that when they let NHL players play in the Olympics, if they let them play seriously that way, this thing's got real promise. Now, I saw Gary Bettman announced a World Cup of hockey. Again, my biggest problem with the Four Nations is that Russia's not allowed, but I'm glad Russia's not allowed, but we do need Russia back into the mix if we're going to have a real, true world championship as far as hockey's concerned. But I'm fascinated to see how this goes. And Team Canada, as always, is stacked. And the United States, I'm ready to see them go toe-to-toe. And so I wish that it was more like, I get why they're doing it, where they set up USA versus Canada on Saturday night. And I get why they're doing it. The way that they're doing it with Canada today and then USA tomorrow and then Saturday, everybody. But I really do wish the USA was playing. I do kind of wish USA-Canada was kicking it off. But I am excited. And we'll see how it goes. And if UC Saros plays well, maybe that's a sign that it is the Predators' fault and not that Saros is just an average goalie. That's it for us. Preds Insiders is next. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow, too.